Hello, today is September 3rd, and I'm back, bitches.
She's also very sick.
Yeah, I'm not feeling great, but I felt like I needed to come back because I've been gone for like 3 weeks. So I've got some tissues here and some Lysol, and hopefully I don't infect anybody.
I modified the Geiger counter there to determine how sick it is, and she's so sick the needle's making an audible sound as it pegs against the side of the glass.
I'm not making enough sound in the mics, though, so I might be a little bit lower. It's not great. Not great.
I know so many great tasteless jokes about how sick are you, but they wouldn't be appropriate. We'd get demonetized. Instead, let's talk about the FCC and a Jeep pie, as is tradition to start with. Now, this one's not directly about a Jeep pie, but the best FCC/a Jeep pie stories are the ones where they're getting busted for the crap that they pull. And today, you might want to check the thermostat in hell, because I totally agree with Miss Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren.
Oh no.
There it is.
The FCC is not happy that Warren called them out over broadband and net neutrality. So what she said was, hey, ISPs are running for, like, she literally said Ajit Pai, is the ISP appointed person, and he is definitely running point for those industries and screwing over the American consumer.
It's called out Verizon specifically.
She dabbed on him.
You're not supposed to do that. That's not supposed to be common knowledge.
So, and of course the FCC responded and said, woo, it's campaign season, whatever, we don't care.
Not untrue.
Yeah, also not untrue.
But I think she probably would have done this anyway. Now, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. And again, hate the woman. So, I do think she's not wrong, and she probably would have done this anyway. I'm not saying it's not politically motivated.
The more I learn about people in government in general, the more I'm surprised that, like, we're probably witnessing the great filter here.
I don't know. Google. Now, Google has had some problems. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, because the apocalypse and the discovery thing and the algorithm. No, not those problems.
Different problems.
They don't consider those problems. Those are working as expected. The problem is with children and the things that children see on YouTube and people figuring out that children are seeing those things on YouTube.
Google to pay more than $150 million in a YouTube privacy case. This is to settle things with the FTC. So the FTC's like, wait a minute, kids are using YouTube, and Google's like, nah, not so much.
How many kids do you think were affected by this?
None.
How many saw things that they shouldn't have seen?
Oh, every child that is on the internet.
Yeah, has ever
been
on the
internet. Would you say maybe like 150 million?
Yeah.
So $1 per?
Seems like...
Seems low.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those things where a government agency gives them a slap on the wrist, pockets the money, and how does the consumer benefit from this?
They get a letter from the FTC that's like, watch your kids online better. And it's like, wait, how?
That should be the answer.
Google did actually roll out some really interesting CAPTCHA alternatives that was like, prove that you're an adult. What is 3 times 8? And just crazy stuff like that.
That's not even like proving you're an adult. It should be like obscure pop culture facts from a certain decade.
Well, they could Google that. When are people going to... They could also Google the math question.
Yeah, the math one would be easier.
But when are people going to complain about those CAPTCHAs? Because they're like culturally insensitive. Because, neighborhoods and areas which are generally bad at math will be unduly affected.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just
or
math.
Or people like me who don't watch movies,
It was other random questions. Like one of the captchas was Mr. Gorbachev, comma, and then there were 4 blanks, and you had to put in the correct number. And I didn't know that one.
Really?
Yeah.
But you grew up during that time. What is it, Krista?
Bring down that wall?
Oh, look at that. She wasn't even alive.
I know. I'm the best.
Oh, we talked about the Indian space program last week, and then in previous weeks we talked about the Hayabusa, which is on that asteroid, dropping bombs on it and drilling it out,
doing all kinds of bomb science
for 3 weeks, and just everything went to hell.
Yeah, the space agencies are really picking up steam, and not the American space agencies. Of course, we got our private sector that's doing a lot, but you got to wonder, do we have space supremacy right now? We can argue that we don't. And Donald Trump hates that.
CNN Politics says that Trump has launched Space Command. And there's a lot of dribble here, but my favorite quote was this is a whole different ball game. And they're also talking about kamikaze satellites, because that means the satellites are going to drop munitions on things.
Well, didn't they say there's like not even a place where like they've determined where the headquarters is going to be? Like there's literally like no details.
Space Command.
Yeah, they just came up with a cool name.
Well, Space Command, I assume, is going to be in the Pentagon. So Space Command is just like the literal, command structure that's under the CENTCOM.
Wait, wasn't the Pentagon originally like each of the 5 sides is a thing? Is it going to have to be a hexagon now?
That'd be expensive, wouldn't it?
We need to reconstruct the entire thing.
Maybe we build vertically, and then the top-facing side is space.
Oh.
And then we'll have a subterranean command that'll be...
That battles the ant people.
Now, it's not just Space Command. This is going to be the command structure, but eventually we're going to get Space Force, which is going to be the Space Marines.
Somebody's watched a little bit too much of that movie where like you had to go fight the insectoid race.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah, that's just...
Listen, if we could get a planet of snake and or spider people to unite the world, I think that would be great for us. It would bring us together. It'd be wonderful. So we had another mass shooting this weekend. We don't talk about it much because what is there to talk about? People aren't. You're not going to change people's minds one way or the other.
America wouldn't be America without the mass shootings.
So there's a lot of questions about what are we going to do about it. A lot of solutions being thrown around. Oddly enough, not a lot of them focused on mental health, which seems to be a huge problem even outside of the mass shooting thing. But the Trump administration does have a plan. I guess you could call it a plan.
It's something.
Gizmodo said, like the Gizmodo headline is, the plan to use Fitbit data to stop mass shootings is one of the scariest proposals yet. And like whatever insanity you're imagining doesn't go far enough for the level of insanity in this article.
It's not even just Fitbit data.
I honestly think this is fake news. This cannot be real.
Well,
I think it's real.
Here's the strangest thing about it. So you're wondering, like, how exactly does that work? And the biggest question, the one that popped into my mind when I started reading this was, how do they get you to wear the Fitbit? Is it going to be just like strapped onto you in a way it's like a...
Or buy the Alexa or whatever things that they mentioned.
Well, or, it'd be like the ankle bracelet you wear when you're on parole or whatever, or when you're on house arrest. Because people aren't going to do this voluntarily. But then you read on, no, it will be voluntary. It's not, they're not even going to be able to take your Fitbit data unless you opt into the program. Which, of course, mass shooters would do. What?
I'm pretty sure that they would just go live in a cabin in the woods with a typewriter.
Yeah, I don't think... If you're together enough to care to wear a Fitbit and to opt into the program and to register online and blah, 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 is mass shooting really in your future? So the idea here is they are basically taking all the data that's coming back from these health... Krista, please.
I'm sorry.
They're taking all that information that's coming back from these devices, and somehow through artificial intelligence, that's like the question mark part of the algorithm, I guess. They're going to figure out what metrics precede a mass shooting.
Is the underpants gnome meme dead? Because that seems like a substitute for AI. It's like something profit.
Yeah, and
AI.
But of course, is it possible that level of telemetry could lead to other things other than mass shootings?
Oh yeah.
And when that happens, what are you going to be swatted? What are they going to do?
It's going to be
They do a wellness check and that's it.
They do a wellness check and just go ahead and take your guns.
Red flag, yeah.
Or just shoot you in the head.
Those will work well together.
It's like, you got a speeding ticket. Let's take your guns.
We've been talking about who was it last week that got ransomware? Was that Texas? No, that was the week before.
Oh, yeah. But there was somebody else last week.
Or something, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was all like Georgia and Louisiana.
That was before. That was before your hiatus.
You're
working on old data, Krista.
We did have somebody that wrote in to clarify what happened in Texas, and it wasn't like every computer of like every organization, but a lot of little different independent organizations were all hit because they apparently like share IT staff or something for a commodity.
But the point I'm trying to get to is last time we talked about it, we talked about if you are in some sleepy little town and you're part of the IT of the government, are you worried about this stuff? Because it doesn't seem like anyone is. Or maybe you are worried and you're telling people and it's just the bureaucracy moves so slowly or they don't care or whatever.
They probably just don't care. Or
But
like, oh, it's next year's budget problem.
Yeah, but in some cases, people are scared.
According to Reuters, U.S. officials fear a ransomware attack against the 2020 election. So this goes on to talk about like not just like the voting infrastructure, but also just the stuff necessary to run the bureaucracy of an election could totally be ransomware.
Maybe we'll get the thing that'll save us is that current ransomware is not compatible with Windows XP, so they won't be able to get the voting machines.
I have a feeling it's not gonna, like if it's coordinated by like a state, like an enemy nation state, not going to stop them.
Yeah, it does seem like that would, and it's something that even in the case where you pay the ransom, you can't fix it in less than like 24, 48 hours. So are you going to do a do-over of Election Day?
We could have a month-long election.
Is that a national holiday?
That'd be amazing.
How does that work?
It's like we just shut down for a month. It's like,
I
it's
could deal with
election
that.
month.
A month of voting. And we'd still have like 30% turnout.
Yeah.
I'm in a glass house there, though. Cyber attacks. Now, we've got the Space Command, but another thing that our government recently initiated was the Cyber Command. We have cyber warfare officially, and we use it. And we don't talk much, or they don't talk much about using it. I won't let myself in with the federal government. And it's probably going on more than we think, but every once in a while, they do brag about it.
The U.S. cyber attack has hurt Iran's ability to target oil tankers, officials say. So this was, apparently Iran maintained a database of all the different oil tankers that would be easy targets, and I guess U.S. Cyber Command just took out the database. They took out all the computers and the facility that was being used to target the oil tankers.
Now, they claim that this is sort of like proving a negative, though.
Yeah.
It's like they would have definitely gotten these tankers if it weren't for us. Well, would they? Did they actually plan to? We don't know. But this is supposedly in response to Iran shooting down that drone.
There was Iran also had like a launch pad explosion. I don't think we had a story for this, but this is related to, or not related, but like Iran had a launch pad explosion, and Trump tweeted that like we didn't have anything to do with that. Sorry for your loss. Something exploded on the launch pad for some rocket somewhere.
But then there was also I don't know if it's the same story, but there was some kind of missile attack that he claimed responsibility for.
Yeah.
And then they tweeted a picture, and I was like, no, everything's still working. Look. So, who can you trust? I don't trust either side.
What's happening?
And I certainly don't trust the media that's reporting all that.
Including ourselves.
Now, when we talk about a Jeep pie, we talk about the revolving door. And it may seem kind of extreme the way that he worked at Verizon and then became head of the FCC and did everything that Verizon asked him to do. But is it really extreme? How often does this happen? Well, more than you would think.
Former hotel exec has been elected to Congress and decides the first order of business is to destroy Airbnb. He sent a memo around to other Congress critters that was basically along the lines of, hey, are people in your district participating in illegal hoteling, which is code for Airbnb.
This guy's from Hawaii, which I imagine has a huge hotel scene.
Yeah.
So he's been in Congress before.
Yeah.
And couldn't
for
get
a different district.
Yeah, couldn't get reelected, and then went I think like a decade. Eventually, he got in the hotel business and became like a huge hotel lobbyist. And I suspect that maybe some big hotel money went behind his reelection campaign.
Listen, we're going to shut down Airbnb because they're eating into our profits. If you own property, you should not be allowed to use your property the way that you see fit.
I bet Hawaiian Airbnbs are top dollar.
Yeah.
I bet they're nice, a lot of them too.
Yeah.
As long as you can get properly insured and it's like up to building code, I don't see the problem.
Yeah, you're not in the hotel business. Oh, the TSA and Homeland
the happiest
Security.
place on earth.
Krista, what was your TSA experience during? Oh, you didn't go international, but you still got TSA.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah, you absolutely get TSA no matter what airport you're in. We had to deal with TSA several times. Again, happiest place on earth. Everyone, smiling in the line and happy to comply. Definitely not angry because, the lines are super long and you have to go to the bathroom and you can't get out of line because then you have to get back at the very end of the line and then you'll miss your flight and it's like the whole thing. And
Just piss your pants, right?
yeah, I did, just to show them.
Well, you're lucky that you weren't trying to get into the country as a non-American, because
Oh no, it applies to Americans too.
Yeah.
when it comes to all of the things that they look at, they've added a new one, and this one is really, really questionable.
U.S. border officials are increasingly denying entry to travelers over others' social media. So they're just arbitrarily searching electronic devices at the border, and it's like, oh, look, your phone downloaded a picture from one of your social media contacts. Can you explain that? Oh, that explanation is unsatisfactory. You're not going to be allowed in.
That's terrifying because I'm friends with Ryan on social media.
Yeah,
Who knows what he's posting?
I just put cat pictures,
Huh.
I mean, Toast and Crouton aren't terrorists.
What if they're, well, you don't know that. And you don't know how their pictures will be
You
construed.
think they have a terror cell? They're just waiting.
They're on a list.
So there was this Chinese kid who was getting into Harvard. And so he was coming here from China. And he was stopped at the border. And they looked through his stuff. And they were like, this looks like some dissidents in your feed here. And it was like, well, yeah, it's not me. That's other people. And they said, oh, you know what? GTFO.
I thought he was Palestinian. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
There were
multiple.
One of the students that couldn't get in only needed he was 2 years in, or 2 or 3 years into his degree.
Yeah, he was almost done with school.
And they're just like, nope, so he can't finish his degree, which is really crappy.
Now, I suppose we don't know exactly what those posts were. I mean,
I wonder almost if, were they just memes? And
well, I mean, if he was friends on Facebook with ISIS for life.
This seems a little too close to thought crime for my taste.
yeah, I don't like it.
is. It doesn't prove anything. Although they're not accusing anyone of a crime. They're simply not granting them a privilege, I suppose, is a way to look at it. But in any case, how long before this is used by police when they are questioning you for a crime?
Immediately.
Yeah, it's probably already happening. We just don't know about it.
It looks like you're using an ad blocker.
Oh, no.
You're right. We are. So, Huawei. We are terrified of Huawei. We're terrified of them getting into the infrastructure, controlling things. Why? Because China. Because China and their tentacles can control these companies.
China
But
number one.
We got an amazing story about WeChat later.
what
Oh, yeah.
what if those red tentacles could get into one of our companies? How terrifying would that be?
It looks like you're using an ad blocker.
U.S. officials reportedly trying to block an 8,000-mile Google and Facebook-backed undersea cable that is going to China. So there's the Great Firewall of China. These companies want to do business in China. What better way to get around the Great Firewall of China than to have a Chinese-controlled, direct attached network connection for both Google and Facebook? This government worry here seems a little disingenuous because do we really think that Google and Facebook are not going to take appropriate precautions that are probably far and away more advanced than anything the DoD could come up with?
Well, there was that dragonfly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. It's whoever the highest
Look,
bidder is.
if they want to behave unethically, that's fine. But I don't think that this undersea cable is going to somehow let them.
But you're leaving out a very important part here.
Yeah.
We would never run a cable to mainland China, which just wouldn't happen. This is going to Hong Kong. But the concern here is, it's like, well, how close is Hong Kong to being annexed by mainland China? I mean, it's more and more looking like that's what's going to happen. And, can we because if you look at what's going on in Hong Kong, it seems like the leaders are puppets for sure. Like,
Does seem a little scary.
they're not allowed to do anything that mainland says no to. So, because apparently they were like, hey, Xi, we're thinking about, maybe negotiating with these protesters. And it was like, no, you're not. You're not doing that. So, I don't know. Bad news if you're in Hong Kong, because this would have made your StarCraft games so much faster.
Well, and also less susceptible to Chinese interference for network connections, because there are definitely internet problems in Hong Kong right now because of the protests, trying to get video and stuff like that out of the country. But there's another aspect of this too that is it's really weird because these companies have gone through quote unquote proper channels to do this, and it seems like it's a little bit like the whole AMD China thing, because like AMD went through the State Department to offer their microprocessor intellectual property to Chinese companies, which was blessed by the State Department. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, things get weird. This is not like this is a new thing. This has been in the works for years, and then all of a sudden now it's got a problem.
Yeah, because things just got real weird in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious. Oh, Amazon. Every week there's a new complaint about Amazon. And it seems like it's not so much that Amazon is trying to be evil. I mean, maybe they are a little bit, but they're just trying to make money, and damn the consequences. But the problem
Turns out
is,
that kind of ends up being evil.
well, that's the thing. They've gotten so big, and they've created this system where it's not Amazon selling you the product. That's this army of third parties. And it's getting to the point that they can't even police it.
That makes sense because, this is from CNBC. It says, senators are asking Jeff Bezos to crack down on thousands of unsafe products on Amazon. Anecdote, have you ever ordered a USB charger from Amazon? Because about 3 out of the last 5 that I've ordered definitely are like house fire territory.
So my dad he was like, hey, order these hearing aid batteries for me from Amazon. And I just did a little bit of reading, and of course the Amazon reviews aren't going to help you, but if you read some other places, you don't want to buy batteries from Amazon ever, because you will get dead batteries.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
Now, they did not go into any detail here about what these problematic products were exactly.
It's probably dozens of things.
Yeah,
just
they did
cheap
say it was a
Chinese
lot.
crap.
it's just poorly made. I'm going to order the cheapest cell phone charger that I can possibly get. You're going to burn down your house. The little tiny, it looks like the first gen, the little tiny cube USB, the Apple chargers. It looks like a generic version of those. And I got one that just came apart in my hands as I went to, I plugged it in and it wasn't working. And I was like, that's weird. And so I was wiggling it to see if it was loose in the thing, and the whole thing just disintegrated in my hands, and there were just raw, 110 volt energized terminals right there. And it's I don't think this was checked by the FCC or CE or anybody.
I got a reading lamp at Ollie's, and it was $5.
Oh no!
But it's LED, so it has the rectifier brick. And there's so much whine that it distracts me from my reading. I can't use it.
We have a light like that in our house, and we never use it because it's so annoying.
Yeah, it's
that will definitely burn your house down
Yeah.
if you leave it plugged in.
yeah, it's right where the cats like to play. So I was like, I'm just throwing this away. There's no point in this. Speaking of Amazon, there is another scandal that they're wrapped up in. We've talked a lot about this, but what we never really knew in the past was the scope of it. How many police forces are in the ring? And now we have an idea.
So the Washington Post says that the doorbell camera firm Ring has partnered with 400 police forces, extending surveillance concerns. So we talked about this a lot last week. You should check that out because there was a lot of good information here. The new information in this article is really the number of police forces, but also how the police force. It almost seems like Amazon is requesting that the police force harass homeowners that are saying no or declining the request to share their Ring data.
And it's kind of like the license plate company we were talking about. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, where when you buy in, you get access to all the existing stuff. So maybe the next county over, you're trying to find somebody and they could easily go over there. Well, you could look at their Ring data maybe. See if they got any facial recognition matches on their cameras for the guy you're looking for. So makes sense, right? It's a snowball. The more police forces that join, the better idea it sounds for your police force to join, which is terrifying. We talk about ad blockers. They are super annoying, right? Now, a lot of people will take the position that it's well, that's the new business model, and if you don't like it, then just don't read it. But should the news work like that? I mean, they have every right to do it. But what happens if the news isn't independent and the government pays the news to make news. That sounds like a bad idea, right? Just right off the bat, I can see a lot of problems with that.
Laughing in England. Bernie Sanders thinks we may want to tax Silicon Valley to save journalism. His plan would bring back the FCC media ownership rules that limit a company's ability to own newspapers and TV stations in the same markets. So I think I'm okay with the ownership rules, but
Yeah.
I don't know how this translates into tax exactly because it was super nebulous.
And the ownership thing, I think any kind of media conglomeration is a bad idea.
Probably, yes.
And that's all we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that great chart where it shows them all,
And they're all
just
connected,
consolidating.
Oh, I thought you
down.
were going to talk about the video where there's like 90 people that are all saying the exact same thing with the same intonation and cadence.
No, this is just a chart.
That's a side effect of what he's describing.
It's a chart of lines, and as they merge, getting down, and there's ends up like 6.
Yeah.
Starts out as 200 and goes down to 6. So, well, I think we are in sort of a crisis period when it comes to the press. But is this a solution? I don't know. It seems like Bernie Sanders is getting Ron Paul'd anyway, so it ain't gonna matter.
Ron Paul.
Remember that time that Amazon got a big juicy contract from the government, from the Pentagon, and Oracle was super pissed?
Well, now technically it's down to Microsoft and Amazon, and they haven't announced who's doing what yet.
Right. It'll definitely be Microsoft. Well, Oracle sued, and then it didn't get anywhere. So what did Oracle do? Well,
Oracle files a new appeal over the Pentagon's $10 billion JEDI cloud contract RFP process. This is actually the third or fourth action that has been taken. And one of the things they were upset about is somebody that used to work for Amazon went to work for the DoD and then went to work for Amazon after this was all announced. So a little bit of that revolving door, but they investigated twice and didn't find that the guy that changed jobs did anything
the government
wrong.
investigated.
Yeah.
The ones being sued.
Yeah.
No.
Although I can't, it's like
You just hate Oracle, though.
I really do.
You're really biased. I'll be honest. I barely skimmed this article, so I was like, Wendell will take over just to describe how much he hates Oracle.
It's just.
But they also pointed out that there's some kind of rule against awarding this to just one company. When it's $10 billion, you're supposed to spread it around a little bit, to help the economy.
Amazon and Microsoft.
We'll see.
The two little guys in the tech sector.
We talk a lot about electric cars, and sometimes it's good news, sometimes it's bad news, sometimes buildings catch on fire. But you can't argue. One thing I'll say, I don't like electric cars, but the one thing that you can't take away from them, they have amazing performance. They got a low center of gravity, the handling is good, they're super, super fast. What's not to love about that? So it kind of makes a lot of sense, I think, for this to happen.
Electrack is talking about the Tesla Model 3 has gotten the nod from police over cost and performance. Bye-bye Dodge Charger. So this is a municipality in Indiana somewhere, and they're going to adopt these, and they figure that by the end of the service lifetime, the thing will have paid for itself, which will help let them hire more police.
They say, usually those cars last about 6 years before they replace them.
Yeah.
And they expect $6,000 a year in savings. And I don't know what a police charger costs. That's definitely a V8 charger, right? So these are what, $46,000 for the nicer Model 3? The range extended range edition.
They mentioned what model it was, but I can't remember.
But they're paying fleet prices.
Probably, yeah. But you got to do the conversion. You got to make it, so you can stick somebody in the back and make them arrestable and can't get out and that kind of thing.
So if you run it for 5 years, you plan to save $36,000. Still probably a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Right? They also said they plan to save money on maintenance. I don't know how true that is. Do we have enough data on Model 3s to know that they're...
I don't think we do. I would question that the battery pack would really last that long under continuous fleet use. But
now they won't be doing long trips, but they'll probably be charging it at least once a day or once every 2 days, right? Because you're going to drive it, you're going to park it at the charger, and then the next guy's going to come on shift and take over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be good though. That'll be testing, right? We'll get some numbers.
Yay, data.
There's a new car to be afraid of when you're driving, and you're like, is that a police car? Or is
I wish they just wouldn't sell civilian copies of whatever the cops drive.
Yes, because sometimes you just don't know, and you like slow down a little bit, and it's like, oh, it's just an old person driving.
Or
the same car.
the bike and or ski racks.
Yeah.
Because you're like, is that I can't tell.
Yeah.
Is that a light rack?
I'm gonna slow down just in case.
Oh, the Motion Picture Association of America. Now, we haven't heard that much from them. I think the streaming game has kind of silenced piracy to the point that they don't have a lot to complain about.
Oh, they could complain
Well,
about
they complain, but it just doesn't get in the news as much. And they are, secretly fighting. And I think the last big thing was with music streaming. They were trying to change the way the payments got made and stuff like that.
I think that was not in favor of the artist, though.
No, why would it?
Well, was any of this ever? But there was one guy. So there was this big leak of data that TechDirt got a hold of, and they went through it, and there was some misdemeanor style stuff in it, but they never published it. But what they found out was there was this one guy who spearheaded literally everything. He was like super lawyer. He was the most aggressive. He was like the Ajit Pai of the motion picture world. And some very interesting news has come out about him.
The TechDirt headline is top MPAA lawyer mastermind behind its plan to attack the internet has been arrested on blackmail and sexual assault charges. And so, you immediately think, oh, this is probably one of those, he said, she said kind of things.
No, this
and
is
blah,
pretty
blah.
cut and dry.
Yeah, no, it's literally he went on the internet and found it was a sugar daddy type situation. And
she was a website, sugardaddymeet.com.
She wanted out, and he was like, no. And
he was like, I'll tell everybody what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. And he forced her to go meet him a couple times a week.
He was going to go to the hospital.
So bad. And so she did it a few more times, and then she was still like, no. And so she looped the police in because it got that bad. And, sure enough, he was doing the tantrum thing, I guess, and the police were there. So they arrested him, and now it's a pretty cut and dry case. And the MPAA fired him and blah, blah, blah.
Of course, I could never put myself in this guy's mindset. This is one of the lowest forms of life on the planet. But can you imagine? Okay, let's say your mind is clouded with lust, right? And you're making bad decisions. And we've all been there. But afterwards, when you're standing on the balcony of your $1 million home, from the profits from attacking the people, and you're smoking a cigarette, are you thinking to yourself, yeah, I really won that encounter. I forced a young girl to have sex with me for money when she didn't want to because I'm so smart. That's got to be a psychopath, right? There's no...
They probably don't even register it as coercion. They're just oh, well, she said yes after I badgered her for 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a shred of empathy or seeing other humans as
humans. Yeah.
Understanding why people might want to rip their music collection from one format to another.
Also, he's going to go in to prison as a sex offender.
Oh yeah.
And he is going to get stabbed. So, we can be happy about that.
Yikes.
That's a whole other conversation because I don't prison has become part of our culture to the extent that it's that's not good.
Oh no, it's terrifying. Yeah, you don't want to go there.
Ryan watches a lot of prison documentaries, and then he relays that information to me and Wendell, and it's I didn't want to know that.
It really is crazy. American prisons are so messed up. It's the whole America-China thing is really scary. The whole border thing, and it's wow, this thing that we're doing at the border sounds a lot like what China does.
Yeah, are we the baddies?
But we've no camera crew has ever gone into a Chinese prison.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I'm sure it gets worse. Also, Mexican prisons. I've read a couple books by guys that went to Mexican prisons.
Is it? But see, that again. I don't want to derail the news here, but again, that's a very interesting rabbit hole to me because it suggests that the people running the Chinese prison know on some level it's wrong and we mustn't document it. Whereas the American prisons allowing the camera crew in don't see anything wrong with what's happening.
Or maybe they do, and they're just trying to get eyes on it. I don't know.
Well, see, the thing about the American prisons is they staff them with some real low caliber people. So it's
they're not aware of what they're doing is probably terrible.
It's very entry level, low skill.
Or people who are so desperate for cash that they can't really speak up.
I failed the psych eval to be a cop. A lot of that. When they had the shale oil revolution, like Colorado and Montana, where they have a bunch of prisons because it's just like a bunch of empty land, they lost like 60% of their workforce because it was like, oh, I can just go be an oil guy because it's low skill. I don't have to be here. So yeah, it's designed. It's the private prison.
Yeah,
it's designed to just perpetuate.
Yeah.
Whereas China probably wants to correct. But they want to correct your freedom ideas.
And if it can't be corrected, we'll harvest your organs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of piracy, which is what we were talking about before all that.
Although here, you just get shanked, and then they harvest your organs.
Yeah. Well, but then they're lacerated, so.
Some of them, not all of them.
Have you ever seen a prison stabbing? The average number of, because it's the knives.
Cut,
The knives are not super useful. Like they don't cut very well. So it's quantity over quality.
Oh.
So you'll get stabbed like 40, 50 times.
The blunt object.
As I was saying, piracy. So piracy is down, but the few remaining pirate operations have seen what's going on with streaming, and they said, wow, that's a really good business model. Imagine if you didn't have to pay any of the licensing fees.
Netflix-like pirate sites offered more video than the real Netflix, the feds say. And so there have been some indictments. Pirate services used torrents and Usenet to build a huge video catalog.
What was the name of one of them? It was like Netflix.
Jetflix.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that, because not every country on earth has a copyright system that works like this. I'm surprised that one of these companies hasn't located there.
Possible title for this episode of the news: Jetflix and Steel. Scooters. We've talked a lot about scooters. There was the electrified, like Razor style scooters, which people weren't able to operate, and they were just jumping in front of buses left and right. There were the Lime scooters, which for whatever reason people decided to throw in the river. There were the Lime scooters that got hacked. It's been a rough road for e-scooters. And now we've learned of one more reason that they might be bad for us.
CNBC says that Miami has ordered the scooters removed from the streets before Hurricane Dorian turns them into projectiles.
By the time this airs, Hurricane Dorian should have hit Florida.
Well, now they're saying it might not be Florida.
Oh.
Puerto Rico?
No, somewhere else.
They're thinking it might be category 4 when it hits.
Puerto Rico.
5.
5 now?
Yeah,
wow.
5,
Friday it was 4.
5, but not hitting the States. But who knows? You
Yeah.
You can't really predict it. So we'll see. They also do tend to overstate. Because what was the name of the last one? Like they really hyped it, and it wasn't that big a deal.
I think the last big one was Irma.
But
Irma was pretty bad.
Maybe that's just what the hurricanes want us to believe.
Listen, if the news hypes everybody into a frenzy, it's going to clean out the grocery stores. It's going to be great for the economy. It's a win-win.
Did you see it wasn't really a meme, I guess. It was just a picture of like a grocery store somewhere in Florida. And like all the water was gone except for that really expensive like...
Foss.
Yeah, that was no one would buy that even in like
isn't that
disaster conditions.
It's like $4
yeah.
per bottle. And you can get an entire case of delicious Nestle for $4.
But not in that cool bottle.
I would be devastated if we had hurricane conditions and I couldn't get Nestle. Because I don't stockpile enough of it. I should.
You should always have an emergency stockpile. 3 days worth of water for everyone in the household.
Also, my cats have really stepped up their water drinking now that they're getting bigger. They're going through like a bottle every 2 days, if not every day.
Wow.
You give them Nestle water?
Oh, yeah.
Or it gets tap water.
Nestle water is the only thing that's consumed in my home as far as liquids. So we talked about Hong Kong and China and the problems that are going on there. Apparently quite a bit of escalation this weekend. So this is maybe one of the least surprising headlines that we've ever seen, I believe.
China intercepts WeChat texts from U.S. and abroad, researcher says. So this is a guy who's been in jail for being a dissident and had to go to a political re-education camp. That's a little scary. And so he's been living here and communicating with people via WeChat back in China, but there are people in China that say that they just don't even see his posts.
Yeah. Well, because he said he was expecting feedback on one and never heard anything.
And apparently there's a bit of, text recognition, where it's if you mention Tiananmen, for example, of course, it's black holed. But he also noticed even just family stuff. If he was copying more than 3 people, they all went into the memory hole. Didn't even matter. And there was another guy who wasn't known as a dissident, but he lived here and actually went back to China a lot. And he learned that his stuff was getting erased. And he was like, should I not go back now? How worried should I be about this?
I would say very worried, and I would probably not go back, but
his family's there. So
meet up at the border.
Not for long if he acts up.
Meet up at the border.
Yeah, just, take a short family drive.
A short drive across mainland China.
Just like a short drive across mainland U.S. Easy. I want to drive from Florida. I want to see the Gulf, and then I want to go up and see Yellowstone in the same day. Is that possible?
Facial recognition. Every week, there's some who are for it and some who are against it, and now we find out where Sweden stands.
Sweden is banning facial recognition technology in schools. That's probably a good thing.
Good job, Sweden.
We've talked about this before, but not only is it, children's rights and all that, but children's faces change so rapidly.
It's not even useful.
Now, the one school that was using it in the U.S., they defended it by saying, oh, God.
Oh, no.
I'm starting to feel it. They defended it by saying that, no, that's for, kidnappers, If you're on some kind of list, and you show up at our doors, we want to know about it, so you can't nab one of the kids. But how much freedom are we sacrificing for that?
Well, shouldn't there be security protocols for that in place already?
Well, I don't think you can even get into a school under normal circumstances. But you got people going in and out all the time, and, the door might get not completely closed and whatever.
I don't know. Even just checking kids in and out of Sunday school, we have a really strict security procedure. I'd imagine schools would be even more so.
The answer is to RFID chip all the kids, right?
Yeah, clearly.
And
That's where we need to go.
And
Because it's not enough just to, monitor everything, I guess. But
Australia. Now, normally when we talk about Australia in terms of technology, it's some horrible Orwellian stuff that their government's doing, and it's just the darkest timeline. They're being experimented on to see what democratic people can tolerate as far as that. But this one is not that. However, it is the Australian government doing something very invasive.
Australian man who says he invented Bitcoin has been ordered to hand over up to $5 billion worth of Bitcoin. U.S. court has ordered Craig Wright to share cryptocurrency haul with the estate of American programmer David Kleiman. So this story is super convoluted.
Look at this guy's face. He's like, "You what, mate?"
That is the look of,
yeah.
You want $5 billion? Could you say that again?
So it's not even really clear if he actually is a Bitcoin inventor, but there's some paperwork that looks like he forged David Kleiman's signature on stuff, and it's maybe they had a wallet together, and then he took all of the wallet. I don't know.
Well, but what is clear is that he was on the ground floor of Bitcoin. And he was mining back when you could mine a lot of Bitcoin. Now, we don't know how much he has exactly, but it's estimated that he has about $10 billion worth. So, but it gets even more complicated because apparently he created some kind of distributed trust with those Bitcoin wallets, and the keys were scattered among a bunch of different people. It's real, Mission Impossible style things, and he says that he can't even get to it to give it to them. So might be making that up.
Could totally be making that up, but
although if you got 10 and you give away 5, is your life really affected?
Well, if you've got a 128-bit key and 4 people have 32 bits, then and you only can recover 3 of those, I think it was 20 people. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know how big the key is off the top of my head, but if you can get half of it, that would be a lot easier to search for the key space.
We'll see. We'll follow that story. Now, another thing that Australia plans to do, and I remember when the big Australian shooting happened, they responded very heavy-handed. They turned off a lot of things. They blocked a lot of things. And a lot of people said you're going too far, which some people might also say about this.
Australia plans to block domains that host terrorist material during crisis situations. I tried to understand how this could possibly be anything useful, but I don't think it is.
Can this literally be like anything?
Well,
with user-generated content, like
what are they going to do? Is this going to be like, the terrorists are streaming the death of the hostages to Ustream, and it's like we got to stop people from tuning into that? It's like, you just tell Ustream, they'll just turn it off.
But they and it wasn't Australia, right? It was New Zealand.
Yeah, it was New Zealand. I was thinking that, but I was like, I won't say anything. I'll just let him finish.
During that, he was done streaming it before anybody really had a chance to react.
Yeah.
So
I don't. This seems silly. This is going to be. This almost seems like it is designed to be blatantly misused, because during a terrorist situation, you simply cannot respond fast enough for anything like this to make a difference.
Or is it like election season in Australia? Is this like pandering on some level?
I don't know, but I think it's more about having an excuse to just turn things off.
Yeah.
Because all those little banana republics are constantly doing that, and it seems to work really well to quell dissent. So again, it's just all a big experiment. See what they'll tolerate. Remember when Macron, France's leader, said, "Hey, we want our piece of all the big tech companies. The EU's getting all their pieces. We're going to take some for ourselves." And Donald Trump stepped in and was like, "Hey, when you mess with Facebook and Google, you're not just messing with Facebook and Google. You're messing with the US of A, sir, and I won't have it." Apparently they had some talks.
Macron says France and the U.S. Have reached a digital tax deal, according to Reuters. And I would think that this Reuters article would have more specifics and details about what exactly kind of a deal they reached.
It's not for you to know.
Yeah.
They probably just went golfing or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's so frustrating, because it's just, why? Why would you even publish this story? There's nothing here.
But you assume that if it is a tax deal, then it's not zero.
Yeah.
There's going to be some kind of new tech tax that France is going to roll out. So, I'm sure we'll find out more about it. But it's coming. I included this story, and it's not really tech related, but it's just something that you got to point out, because so many tech stories. I mean, we already did the one, YouTube, for example. What, 250 million?
Yeah.
It's
slap on the wrist.
The amount of money that you make by violating these laws and rules, and in this case, killing people, and the fine you get, the difference is just staggering.
Johnson & Johnson ordered to pay $572 million in landmark opioid trial. That doesn't seem like enough, because didn't they make tens of billions of dollars?
And this was over nearly a decade, right? So, again, I'll ask, how many individuals do you think were affected by the opioid crisis?
Well, probably more than 10 million. So that means they...
No, that's people who are addicted to opioids.
What about the families,
affected,
employers,
the entire population.
Yeah, does anyone not know someone who's on opioids?
Again, I'm sure some people... I mean, I haven't been... there's probably too many degrees of separation between me and the people I know that I couldn't say I was affected. So let's say 100 million, all right? So we got $572. How many OxyContin would that buy?
0.03. That's crazy.
It's disgusting. Now, this is blaming the gun, but when we looked more into it, they did a lot of questionable stuff to promote these and pay the doctors.
Wouldn't a better solution to this, instead of taking any money from Johnson & Johnson, to just say you must fund and set up a nationwide de-addiction clinic?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Of course, we're getting paywalled here, but
this was all based in Oklahoma.
What they were seeking, I think, was something like $15 billion.
Yeah.
To put toward a U.S. rehabilitation.
That's about how much it would take.
Yeah, exactly. And they were like, "Hey, we think it did this much damage, and we're going to take this money and we're going to do this with it." And no, we're going to settle.
$500 million would fund about 100 clinics for about 3 years nationwide.
That wouldn't even clean the bathrooms.
Yeah, that's like 2 things per state. So that doesn't really help people that are addicted right now.
Well, let's think about the kids. Once they get addicted.
a lot of them were born addicted. They talked about that too, that they advertised toward mothers saying, "Oh, it's safe," even though their children are born addicted. And
yeah, they did a lot of bad things. There is if you want to look up the Purdue Pharmaceutical, I think they finally got them taken off of YouTube, but you can find them on like LiveLeak and stuff. The Purdue Pharmaceutical opioid advertising videos.
Those are amazing. You definitely need to look those up.
It's astonishing because they are just blatantly saying all the opposite of all the truths about opioids. It's like, some people believe this is addictive. That's simply untrue.
Only if you take it. So you're fine.
Now, switching to social media, this headline
is wrong.
It seems embarrassing, but when you dig down into it, this points out one of the biggest and probably least known problems we have in terms of security in the world, because this was not his fault.
Twitter CEO and co-founder Jack Dorsey has his account hacked, according to the BBC News. What actually happened was Twitter acquired a cloud reposting thing. So like there's this service where you could post to cloud, like social media. It was called Cloud something. And his mobile phone number was hooked up there so that he could create a tweet as an SMS message. Well, of course, his phone number's changed. And so the hackers figured out what his old phone number was, got it, and then used that old service to tweet via SMS. And it they legit had that number.
Was it his old phone? I thought he got SIM jacked.
Yeah, I don't think it said SIM jacked in the article.
Pretty sure he was SIM jacked.
Okay.
And they also said an unnamed telephone service. Why wouldn't you name them? Why wouldn't they be shamed for
They
that?
have some sort of deal with them, probably.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're still looking into it and they don't want to tip off, like the employee that's getting some kind of sting out.
Well, maybe he was SIM jacked. The first version I read was not the BBC version.
So yeah, but this is where if you don't know what SIM jacking is, you can just go and pay off somebody at the phone company to set up your SIM to be that person's phone number, and then nobody knows the difference. It's just so if they have two-factor or whatever coming through that, you can do it.
You should do two-factor through an app, not through SMS. SMS is not secure.
Well, Jack didn't know that.
Even if you're in physical proximity of somebody, you can still. It's bad. It's very bad. If you have the right equipment.
Now, this is a hilarious study. Of course, it's written as a study, so it's dense and hard to really glean the important parts. You need a nice write up from one of, like TechCrunch or somebody needs to do it. But what it gets down to is how social media and social media addiction is self-fulfilling prophecy.
Social media stress can lead to social media addiction. So I don't know. I didn't get a good feel for the context of social media stress. If they meant like general social anxiety, definitely yes, ding, ding, ding. Or just like
the stress of looking at social media?
Well, they gave an example. Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, you're looking at Facebook, right? And you're scrolling through your feed and you're seeing how good everybody else's life is. And so you're like, oh, this is stressful because I'm such a loser.
Yeah.
So you go to Facebook chat, or maybe you go to Twitter or whatever, and you start looking at that and you're like, oh, this will make me feel better. And then you get the same stress from that. And so then you switch to some other service, or you go back to Facebook and do something else.
And eventually you end up on 4chan and feel great about yourself.
Or you decide that, you hate women.
One or the other. It's just a 50-50.
But they studied a variety of people using Facebook. It wasn't in the U.S. It was some other country. And how they used it and stuff like that, interviewed them. And they kind of figured out that it all causes stress. But the way that people deal with stress can often be more social media.
It really argues for separation of like social media and like whatever it is for like finding interesting content. Like share interesting things and stuff that's happening on the internet with your friends, but like the vapid, self-indulgent, like whatever the hell it is, like that shouldn't be on there. That should be somewhere because it's just it's a black hole of time.
I think that's kind of what Instagram was sort of figuring out. Yeah. Is the votes and the like button.
Yeah.
That's kind of the addictive property of it.
Yeah.
And plus that's what causes stress, because now you can see what people have that you don't.
Yeah.
And it's literally quantified.
Likes, which mean literally nothing, but
Oh, they mean everything. What about that view counter, Krista? We need more.
subscribe now. Tell your friends.
Check out the Level 1 store or our Patreon at patreon.com/level1.
YouTube had a problem, they said, with extremist content. And they, this was part of the big adpocalypse sweep. And they went through and they mopped it all up. And they got rid of a lot of the right-wing people. And then a little bit later, they claimed they were going to do it for the left-wing people. And animal cruelty and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they went, maybe, and in some people's eyes, a little overboard. And now, maybe, they're walking it back.
YouTube CEO explains why it leaves up controversial or even offensive videos. Susan Wojcicki, I don't know if I butchered that real bad, I'm sorry.
Polish.
It's like,
Addresses quote-unquote openness in her latest note.
Yeah, so they did reinstate some of the more right-wing channels last week. But interestingly enough, there was a whole big episode where I think they told InfoWars that they could relaunch, and InfoWars did a big thing, and they were like, freedom is going to succeed, and blah, blah, blah. And then after they posted the first video, they were immediately banned.
that has to be automated though, right?
No.
So
the algorithm is like,
Yeah.
yeah. So some people are saying it's not enough, and then she talks about being an open platform means having some uncomfortable content, but people are still getting banned for some weird reasons. And with the whole discovery and monetization thing,
no battle bots.
it doesn't matter if you can upload videos, yeah, you can exist, but no one's ever going to see them. So is that not another kind of like shadow banning? So who knows where that will go. Facebook. Remember when we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Facebook has made this bizarre decision in the face of like monopoly antitrust investigations that it wants to brand everything now as Facebook. Instagram from Facebook, WhatsApp from Facebook. And that's weird, right? Why would you do that?
We talked about that last week.
And it turns out probably the reason you would do that is because then you can get away with merging all the data together, as if they don't already. But
also makes it hard for a monopoly situation to break up the company, because it's like, where's the clear lines?
But the Germans believed that was against this new EU directive. And was it?
Facebook succeeds in blocking German FCO's privacy-minded order against combining user data. So Facebook is going to be allowed to combine user data, even though the German FCO is like, whoa, what are you doing?
So if you don't have a Facebook account, but you've got an Instagram account, Facebook knows who you are. The like button, log in with Facebook Web, will catch you, even though you don't have a Facebook account. You will be merged in, and they will know who you are.
And that was one of the things.
If you run, it will chase you.
I'm impressed that the German politicians are actually able to put this together, because our politicians are still trying to shove a square peg in a round hole.
You know what's even more impressive? That despite the German politicians being able to put this together, Facebook has the political power to destroy it. So
You think they sent him like a fried goat? It's like a
not completely fried.
Oh yeah, wasn't it raw? I can't. The story was so strange.
Maybe he went with the just the goat's boiled stomach, since they're German.
It's like, look, I made blood sausage. Is this not amazing?
We send our regards. Don't trifle with us again.
We meant it as a friendly international gesture, but instead it was interpreted like the horse's head in the bed from The Godfather.
An offer they can't refuse.
Yeah.
It's basically what big tech is, because your people want it. And imagine if you were the guy. You were the politician that said Germans don't get to use Facebook anymore. That is the end of your career.
You post the thing, you go to Facebook.com, and it's like, Angela Merkel says that you don't get any Facebook. It's just like, what? And there's all those addicted people that are just,
Well, that's a great lead in, right? Now, I had never heard of this test before. Had you?
No.
This is an amazing test. Okay, so let me tell you just a little bit, before we tell you the headline, let me tell you a little bit of how this test works. So it's a quote-unquote gambling test. But before the gambling test happens, they explain to you, they get, was it 5 decks of cards?
Yeah.
You get 5 decks of cards, and they explain to you that in order of severity, there's a risk factor for these cards. Now, some of them will give you really good short-term wins, but there's some nasty shit lurking in those decks. And they're like, listen, over the course of the game, this deck is going to screw you. Now, this deck on the other end, it's going to be a slow burn, but it's really safe. And so you determine how risky you want to get. And they found that people who make really bad decisions in life will pull a lot from the risk deck. And so they use that to determine, like, certain personality things. And they decided to use that test on Facebook users.
So TechCrunch has the headline, research finds heavy Facebook users make impaired decisions just like drug addicts. So you're going through withdrawal, you're looking at these Facebook posts, and it's like, oh man, Bob got a boat. I got to get a boat.
I should get a boat.
Yeah, and you go through withdrawal, and then you start making terrible decisions. Because it's just like gambling. It's just like an addiction. Or you post stuff about the boat that you just bought, which might have been a terrible financial decision, but you're getting all kinds of comments and likes, and it's like, wow, you're really successful. And it's like, yeah, I am.
So they tied Facebook addiction to this lack of, forward thinking, this like the immediate gratification kind of mindset, where you would keep going for that risky deck, even though somebody was chastising you and telling you it's going to go bad if you keep going down this road. But it's like, hey, I just went down that road 3 times and it was good every time, so it's going to be good, right? You ever watch those videos of the marshmallow test they do with kids?
Oh, the one is like, how long can the kid wait for
It's
delayed
the same kind of
gratification?
thing.
Yeah.
They sit them down there like, look, you're not allowed to have this marshmallow, and I'm going to go get 3 marshmallows, and when I come back, I'm going to eat one, you're going to eat 2. But you can't touch this one. If you touch this one, this is the only one you get. And then they leave the room. And these kids just agonize over the marshmallow. And some of them will just pick at it, just take a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is that same kind of thing where the Facebook addict simply cannot put off gratification.
We do that with Rue.
I'm pretty sure that Walmart is designed that way.
Has Rue ever passed that test?
Yeah, that's like a training thing we do with her. We put a treat on the ground, we tell her to leave it. And you could see that internal struggle of I want that peanut butter treat. And she'll just look at you and and then she has to wait until you say, okay, go get it.
Toast is so bad about treats that I'll give him one first, and then while he's distracted eating his, I'll give one to Crouton. And sometimes he gets so worked up, he just runs over and bites my hand.
No.
Does he bite your hand out of malice, or is he just excited?
I don't know. It's not a hard bite, it's like the playful bite, but it's just, I don't know. He wants it so bad.
I just can't focus. I had to teach Rue easy because sometimes if you give her a treat as a reward, she would get that worked up and then kind of chomp your hand a little bit. And I had to be no, take it easy. So then she'll slowly lean her mouth forward and take it out of your hand.
But it's doubly hard because Crouton is kind of retarded when it comes to, he can't take the treat out of my fingers because he'll just bite my fingers because he's stupid,
Yeah.
Because they can't see directly under their nose. You don't think humans we can, but the cats can't do that. And when it's on the ground, he takes his sweet time, and Toast is just all over him in the meantime trying to get it. So,
all right, what do we got for tomorrow?
Tomorrow's going to be business and security, I think.
This was a long section.
Yeah,
well, they're all long
there were
today.
a lot
There was
of
a
stories.
lot of news.
Yeah.
Oh, an hour.
Wow,
A long episode.
Oh no.
Well, it's a short week.
Oh.
Short week, long episodes.
Hello. Today is September 4th, and it's the news. We're here.
And still dying.
Wendell just, we got water bottles on our break, and I was drinking out of one, and Wendell just grabbed it and started drinking out of it, so he's got an extra dose of germs now.
I was already infected, so.
And this just happened 2 weeks ago, and I know it's going to happen again, and it's killing me.
I've avoided it right before my wedding, and then this is payback
This is
for avoiding it.
what's that movie where people avoid dying.
But then something more terrible happens.
Yeah, death won't let them go.
Final Destination.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
We've been jet setting all of the coasts that we have all of the strains of the flu in the office this year.
It does seem like everyone's gotten sick at least once this year, which doesn't usually happen, but
Just hoping this Lysol. And
yeah,
it's-
we've got Lysol over here.
But I'm sure it's the 0.01% that's got me. The one that it can't
Do you
kill.
feel scratchy? Because for me, it started with scratchy throat.
I do, but that's kind of like when you watch something that has to do with spiders or whatever. You itch
Yeah,
a
and your
little
head
bit.
feels itchy.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's talk about unions. Last week we talked about the YouTube union, and that looks like it's maybe going to happen because YouTube is not willing to give in to any of their demands. But that's not the only big tech company that might be looking at some unionization.
Google contractors are unionizing with a steel workers union. So this is pretty cool, actually. So this is happening in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. So yeah, these guys talk about being the shadow workforce of Google, and in one case, Google was like, "Yeah, our AI totally did this project," and the contractors were like, "Wait,
Excuse you?
what? That was us. We it's like no Google employees worked on this. This is all AI," and the contractors were like, "What?"
You're artificial. You're not real.
Like the Indians who were doing those apps.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, that's AI. So they want equal pay, obviously. 'Cause they say, hey, we're doing the same work. We have the same skills as Google employees, but we're just not getting the same pay or benefits. And we want both of those things. So it's a question of how replaceable are these guys? Do you think they really have as much skill as the regular Google workers?
I'd say they probably do. The issue is that the tech field is so full of people constantly coming in, like fresh out of college, who are probably like, oh, I'd love to work for Google, so they'll probably work for next to nothing.
Did you guys see that story? There had been this huge operation, and they finally pulled the trigger and raided the homes. I think it was auto workers unions, and they found just tons and tons of evidence that these guys were getting paid by the industry hand over fist to give them good deals with the unions. So the union members were suffering while the union leaders were getting showered with gifts and money.
Of course.
And they all went to jail.
Of course.
So unions are definitely a double-edged sword. A lot of people don't like to hear that. And the other thing that is changing in the world of labor is Chinese labor.
The mass exit.
Yeah, all of a sudden, people are a little questionable about China. Now, it started, of course, with Trump because tariffs hurt your Chinese goods.
We cover this a lot in the other episodes of the news, like the last episode this week talking about the government stuff. It's just, it's a mess.
But also now Hong Kong.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting real tentative about what's going on over there. It's not a good look. And if your product is associated with that, now that we have this, activist culture, that could really hurt you. There could be a backlash against it. So what do?
Google to shift Pixel's smartphone production from China to Vietnam. Look at that.
A country with poor workers' rights to another country with poor workers' rights.
Well, they point out that the Vietnamese have already been working in some of these same kinds of settings, these factories, and they have similar skills as the Chinese people. So, yeah, they're poor, sure, but they're good at making phones. So, hey. And they mentioned, was it Apple that had already gone over there?
Mm-hmm.
There was one other company that's already heavily moving into Vietnam.
Don't forget that Google also said that they were going to fully roboticize, if that's a word, smartphone production with the remnants of Motorola. That was in Texas. That did not materialize.
Those robots are exactly like the AI. It's actually just Vietnamese.
Do you think there will be a push for any smartphone maker to have factory conditions that aren't absolutely terrible?
No.
No, because that phone's going to be $2,000.
Yeah.
Well, the phone's already $2,000. The phone's going to be $5,000.
So the thing about Google, if you're a Google executive, that you have to worry about is every week there's a new subset of Google employees who are furious. Of course, now we've already got the contractors this week Last week we had the pregnant women. Before that, it was the left wing, and then it was the right wing, and then it was the people who are upset about China. Who else? Who's on the list next?
Jennifer Blakely, ex-Google employee, calls out the culture of sexual misbehavior that started at the top. So, in a blog post, Jennifer Blakely says the chief legal officer, David Drummond, made her life hell. If any of her claims hold water, he's not going to have a job.
Yeah, but what's his name at Intel?
Brian Krasinich.
I mean, you think Google is wildly different than that and
No.
the corporate structure? Because these aren't the guys making the chips.
Yeah.
This is a whole different kind of animal
Yeah.
that's working in the
This
top
was
offices.
This was the legal department, and it does say that when they found out about her relationship with him, that she had to go to a different department, which was sales, and said she didn't enjoy sales, so her life became miserable. And then she didn't have a job, and then because she didn't have a job, she felt shackled to him, and then it just turned into a mess.
I missed this story. So, like, was she dating this guy consensually?
Yeah, for a while.
That's why you shouldn't do that.
Or be aware of the risks that come with that.
Huawei, we know, has been under the gun of the government. And recently we've seen them back off a little bit. And they're like, okay, well, maybe you can buy some parts for the next 90 days. And maybe we won't attack you all of a sudden. But there is one thing that has happened. The time has run out, and this is going to hurt them.
Huawei's next phone will not have Google apps. So it could have Android, but no Google apps.
Boy, App Store.
That's crazy.
That's big. I mean, what good is an Android phone if you don't have the App Store? Or the suite of Google apps?
Yeah, that seems like a nail in the coffin.
Now, you could do all these things through the web. That's still true.
This might actually be good news for China. They could just have WeChat and WeBrowser and WeApp Store, and the China will just control everything.
Yeah, but where are you going to sell them outside of China?
Yeah.
Google don't care as long as they get their royalties.
I guess so. So, yeah, they've talked about if the Android thing falls through, they're going to go to their own OS. But don't you think with this, you still have to do that?
Yeah.
How long can you survive without the Google apps?
Probably not very long, sadly. As there are third-party ROMs that do without the Google apps, but then everybody always puts them back, which you're not supposed to do.
And speaking of things not getting into the U.S., there might be even more things not getting into the U.S. soon.
Oh, CNET's got the lawsuit against TSMC could block new devices from entering the U.S. The lawsuit seeks to block the importing of devices that have offending chips inside, including Apple, Google, OnePlus, and Motorola gadgets. So, Global Foundries, Glowflow, in New York, is saying that TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC, has been manufacturing stuff that violates the patents of Global Foundries, that these patents are not licensed. TSMC's fired back and said those accusations are baseless, but it's a weird situation. Think about like AMD processors, which have both Glowflow and TSMC silicon in them. So I'm sure AMD's sitting in the middle here is like, girls, you're both pretty. You're both pretty. But
I love you for
It's
different
Lisa
reasons.
Sue.
yeah.
Well, they should just argue the same as the whatchamacallit case. Qualcomm, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, none of that matters. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have licensing.
This is a developing story, and I am sure that we're going to cover it many, many more times in the future, but it is going to be interesting to see. Global Foundries does have some very specific claims as to their patents, but TSMC is in like full war mode, so it's going to be interesting to see how TSMC responds to the allegations. I don't have an opinion as to whether or not what's going on. I don't know enough about the technology yet, but I'm sure we'll have those stories.
Well, it's going to be that time of year where everybody's announcing their hot new fall lineups in anticipation for the holiday and rabid shopping season that's coming up. And we have Microsoft telling us about the new Surface.
Microsoft announces a Surface event on October 2nd in New York City. And this article is rife with all kinds of speculation and clickbait nonsense because that's what we do now. It's like The piece of news here is that there's a Surface event in October. We don't know anything more than that. Nothing is leaked. It might be a dual screen device that's coming out. We don't know.
But what if it was?
Why do people even look? How is this profitable in this news cycle? Like, this is just. Oh.
This is the verge of
And all the
technology,
comments will
Wendell.
be complaining about it, but they all read it.
How can
So
you
did
be?
we.
How can you be on the verge if you're not speculating? Cutting edge.
That's why you're here, isn't it? For those terrible puns.
So yeah, at least we know that we are getting a new Surface of some description.
It needs to have dual Thunderbolt ports and something less ridiculous for the connection between the GPU and the tablet part than that little connector that'll cause a blue screen if you rock the machine the wrong way.
While we're wildly speculating, do you think they'll do something better with like their pens?
Yeah, they need to
That'd
improve
be
their
cool.
pens.
Since they just released like the Apple Pencil, will they try to compete with that, or do you think they'll just leave it alone?
I would say Microsoft has missed the boat on this. Like, one of the things that I think they need is like the whole angle of the pen thing, because that actually is legit cool on the Apple Pencil too. But I don't think I think Microsoft's asleep at the helm. I don't think they're gonna. Well, if that'll be the sea change indicator, like the bellwether thing.
The pen.
Yeah, it's like, does the
If they come
pen
out with one, maybe we'll do a review of it.
does the pen have the angle sensor? If it does, they've tried to put some engineering into it, and if it doesn't, it's just garbage.
I don't think that you should. Don't invest based on that advice.
Yeah.
That's
Don't invest on anything we say.
Yeah, pretty much.
well. If I can't get you excited about the Surface, how about a hot new kind of Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi 6 will upgrade your workhorse wireless network. 5G is great, but this Wi-Fi update will help you out with sooner with faster speeds and longer range at home, work, and school. You are going to need a new router at home, but a lot of devices shipping today have Wi-Fi 6. A lot of the new AMD motherboards have Wi-Fi 6. A lot of the new laptops have Wi-Fi 6. It deals better with interference. It deals better with, sort of the edges of like your house. And it also supports mesh networks better. So future, routers, it's like it comes with the main unit, and then it might come with a couple of satellite units that you can scatter throughout your house. The access point mesh situation is going to be much better because that Wi-Fi protocol was designed with mesh in mind.
Most importantly, faster, because you need to move bigger files, because now you're watching 4K, right? Now you're moving all this big data across your house. Your refrigerator is moving a lot of data,
It's got some Russian's Bitcoin wallet on it. He needs to be able to get to your fridge at any time.
Yeah, if your coffee maker is going to mine Monero, it needs faster data.
Sous vide, the heat from the sous vide machine.
Oh, they're going to crucify you for that.
Yeah, I didn't say that right.
Vide.
Sous vide.
I thought it was vide too. It should be vide, right? It's so much better.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sous vide.
It's sous vide, yeah.
Well, we've talked about Disney Plus, and
We also pronounce Versailles. So.
Yeah, well, that's the
but that's
Kentucky way.
official. Like the Kentucky Versailles is Versailles, which I
If you're
kinda
talking about
like.
French Versailles, it's Versailles. But
Is it though?
So Disney
that's how
Plus,
the French pronounce it.
we talked about they are coming in with a low price and a big package. You get Hulu, you get Disney Plus, and you get ESPN something, and they're looking to be disruptive. But they're also looking to kind of walk back some of the things that make streaming so unique. And I think, personally, I hate this. And I think people are going to really dislike it.
Disney Plus to release episodes weekly, a welcome break from stress binging.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Let's take an option away from you. Oh, isn't that a great feature?
I could see how this would make sense from a business standpoint in terms of like production. Because it's like the production crew is working on one episode at a time, and the production crew will release one episode at a time, and that's fine.
Well,
You want to be able to like produce a cohesive season though, like
Well,
yeah, it's more work up front, but like at least then you catch any like continuity errors, like when you're doing a full viewing, like before you release it.
I'm thinking about like Star Trek, and so they would always they would start shooting video like super early, and then when they started releasing episodes for the new season, they weren't necessarily done with the episodes later in the season, but it was all pretty much shot, and it was just like special effects and getting the stuff together and that kind of thing. But yeah, if the entire season of Star Trek came out at one time, that would be preferable.
of course it would. Now, TV Line, which may be a little industry biased, they were talking about kind of from a perspective of the streaming service themselves, because this keeps your subscribers subscribed.
Yeah.
Now, if I can watch, I got this Boba Fett series. If I can watch all of that at one time, I'll just cancel, right? If that's the only thing I care about.
That's what people did for HBO the last season.
Yeah, and I'll
of
come
Game of
back
Thrones.
in when you give me something else that I'm excited about. So this prevents that.
Disney's evil.
I don't know anybody, even people who really are into Disney, I don't know really anyone who's excited about this.
Parents.
But
Parents are super excited
are
about
they?
that. Oh my God.
Because I have friends who are parents, and all of them were like, I'm not paying for this. Like, no,
But it's cheaper than Netflix.
they're not paying for it. Not
We'll
interested
see.
in it.
We'll see. They're talking that shit, but they're going to do it.
Most of them are like, time to go back to pirating.
Pretty much.
That's illegal.
We would never recommend that at Level 1 Techs. Though we understand.
If you work in technology, you got to keep on learning. It's always learning something new. And we have all these new avenues of doing that. And lynda.com is one we've used in this office for probably
Years.
10 years now, right?
Yeah, it's been a long, it's been there for a long journey.
And it was good. And then Microsoft bought it.
Yeah, it's been less good since then. And now it's about to get a little worse, according to ZDNet. Microsoft is moving lynda.com users to LinkedIn Learning, and not everyone's happy about it. It's hard for me to imagine a company less ethical than LinkedIn.
And we
Microsoft.
qualify as people who are under the umbrella of not everyone.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are under the umbrella of not everyone if they understood what was really happening under the hood here. LinkedIn is terrible.
It is.
It's
It's
just terrible.
poorly designed, confusing.
Also, they had some
It's a data leak waiting to
they had
happen.
data leaks. Didn't they have one?
They did, several, actually.
Yeah.
Some of them have flown under the radar, but it's just like, good Lord, people.
So that's just disappointing. That's Facebook level behavior right there.
Yeah.
And I don't care for it. So we should boycott them.
Engagement challenge. What are compelling Lynda alternatives that have similar information? And don't say Lauracasts, because that's just Laravel.
I kneel at the altar of Stack Overflow.
Well, that's
That's
not
not
the
the
same.
It's not really. Not at all.
That's-
Especially because like every time you go to Stack Overflow, it's like, why are you doing it that way? Why don't you just do it this way instead?
That's like feeding your pet nothing but treats.
It technically feeds them, but
Short
it doesn't
term,
really nourish them.
It's useful and it's easy, but you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so Amazon. Amazon, if you'll remember, was looking for a new headquarters. And that was some big, big money. So a lot of different municipalities were in the running and they were really excited about it. And New York was one that seemed to be, on one hand, welcoming Amazon and with the other, stabbing them. And Amazon didn't like the stabbers. And they had a very unique way of dealing with that.
Business Insider says that Amazon reportedly kept a burn book of all the mean things politicians said about it. Now, I think the New York Times is the one that actually saw this, so this is a story about a story, which is sort of
Well,
weird.
because you
Also,
know
they're
what?
not misusing the word burn book here.
Are you thinking of burn book as like people who are excommunicated from a thing?
No. When I was in middle school, the girls had a burn book. And that, was it a burn book? Yeah, and it was like just a binder. It had every girl's name written in it in your grade. And then people would write things on their page. And then a lot of times mean things were written in the burn book.
Well,
And I was not popular enough to really warrant a page in the burn book in my 8th grade class.
But this is kind
So-
of slightly the opposite of that, I guess.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's confusing. Why it's bad.
But it's
form.
in a way they wrote down the names of all the politicians and then listed the times that they made them mad. So it's kind of the same thing.
I guess kind of. What a strange thing. Who
I mean-
knew that was a thing that still existed?
It's hard for me to imagine, but if Amazon had a large enough contingent of executives that were peppering people in New York with stuff, it probably would be good for all those executives to be on the same page. And perhaps a wiki type document would be a good way to keep everybody on the same page. Like, you got all these C-suite executives, like 20 of them that are working on this New York headquarters project. And it's like, okay, here's what happened at the meeting that nobody else wanted to go to.
See, you're just making it sound logical. I'm imagining that same composition book from 8th grade, and it's got like hearts and sparkles on it. It's like burn book.
Are you telling me that Amazon is being run by, teenage girls, basically.
Yeah. And then, like, Sharon is a fugly slut is written in one of the first pages.
Cortez is a slut and has syphilis.
I'm pretty sure that's already been posted to Twitter by politicians.
Trust her.
But ultimately, Amazon didn't go to New York, so I guess they can throw away the book. Although...
Or it'll get banned from the
school. The article points out that
they
haven't said that they're not coming back.
I'm sure that when it comes time for Amazon to allocate election money, that book will come into play. So we talked in the last episode about the Ring doorbells and how ubiquitous they are. We now have 400 police agencies that are part of this Ring program.
And growing fast.
It's like a multi-level marketing, except it's the cops.
And your data.
So the way this works is they sell you a Ring, the cop talks you into buying it, and then they get a kickback. But then Amazon and the police agency work in tandem to convince you to let them look at your Ring data and use that for law enforcement. Now you have to say yes. But what happens if you say no?
The Ring organization has given police stats about users who said no to law enforcement requests. Not just no, but also people who just ignored the requests. So, yeah. It's like, I guess you need to know if you're doing well in terms of getting all of the available Ring data, but that seems a little disingenuous.
It seems like if things were to get really bad, Hong Kong, that list could be used to round up people who aren't with the party.
Yeah. Did you see that they were spraying protesters with blue ink so they could be arrested later?
Yeah. I mean, it's
terrible.
It's smart in a despotic kind of way. Yeah.
I mean, does that mean like every citizen in... I don't know.
Yeah, like what if you're just walking by on your way to work?
Well, yeah, they attacked the...
It's organ harvesting for you.
Well, they attacked the train stations and the airports, right? And it's like, what if I was just flying that day? How do I not get caught up in that? It's terrible. So, advertising. We live in a world where people are sitting around and it's just like, what else can we inject advertising into? Literally anything can be used. But every day there's a new frontier that you wouldn't have thought about before. And this one it seems obvious in retrospect, right?
Yeah, it really does. NPM has banned ads in the terminal. So this is the JavaScript community, Node Package Manager. JavaScript's community has had a negative reaction to a recent experiment that kills potential avenue for funding open source projects. This is nobody so Linode and LogRocket sponsored this, and they have since pulled out. But this guy had written a library, like a helper library, that was used by a lot of people. And so he's like, okay, when you add this to your project, I'm going to pop up an ad in your terminal. And it's like, you shouldn't do that. But that's actually kind of clever.
Now, what he did is he made the ad thing a separate library. So you could actually get it for yourself. And you could run your own project through this. I don't know how it took payment. I guess it was just like he had some sort of...
It's probably an affiliate link. That's what it looks like there.
So
like LogRocket.
He thought that this was going to be some revolutionary new way to fund open source projects. But it was maybe just a little too invasive. And people turned against it really quick.
At least it didn't steal your Bitcoin wallet. I mean, that's what's happened in the past.
Yeah, but...
This is less terrible than that.
It might be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about ways that people could use libraries to slip into their project, like how far are we from a Monero miner?
There was that scene in... that's happened too. It's funny you mention that. There's that scene in Futurama where, it was like one of Fry's first nights in the future, and he's like, oh, that's crazy. There was an ad in my dream. And it's like, didn't they have ads in your time? And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, they were just literally everywhere, but not in my dreams.
Yeah, with that Neuralink thing.
Yeah.
It might not be that far away from that. Uber and Lyft and the gig economy is another point of contention. It's another group of people who are trying to unionize, who are fighting back and saying that they're being taken advantage of. And they actually had this giant protest, which seemed pretty effective. At least it brought both Uber and Lyft to the table. Now, these people want to be recognized as employees, not contractors. Uber and Lyft said, we're not going to do that, but we'll throw you a couple bones.
Uber and Lyft propose a $21 an hour minimum wage for drivers after a wave of protests. I feel like drivers around here would be like super happy with that, but if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, that's probably bad.
Or New York.
Or New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, here that would be incredible.
High cost of living is definitely going to kill you there. But the thing about it is, around here, the volume isn't there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, most people just do it like on the weekend or something.
so a place where you're going to have constant work, $21 an hour. Yeah. Of course, those cities have people who work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Some people are making it work. I don't know how. But the other thing they said is, quote unquote, some kind of benefits. Like they didn't even bother to try and, so it's going to be the lowest tier, whatever we can get.
Free auto insurance?
Tickets to Kings Island once a year.
A contest in a raffle or a ticket in a raffle to win tickets to Kings Island.
One free MRI and one free ultrasound will be given away every month in a raffle.
Perfect.
As we said, it's new tech season, and if you're not hyped about the Surface and you're not hyped about new Wi-Fi, perhaps, just perhaps, a new iPhone.
Apple will launch an iPhone 11 on September 10th in Cupertino. They're expected to roll out the iPhone 11 Pro.
Oh man, how close were they to unleashing the iPhone 11 on September 11th? And they were like, oh, we probably shouldn't do that. Do it the day before. So yeah, is this going to be the Pro or is this going to be different?
Yeah, rumor has it there's going to be a Pro and some other things. We did not get an invite, obviously, but a lot of other large YouTubers definitely did. This might have like the Mac Pro could conceivably go on sale.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Just in time for the fall.
Are you guys ready for fall?
No, waiting, kind of. I'm
ready
ready for the fall's temperatures.
Yeah, it's very hot here.
You know what's not ready for the fall? My lawn.
What do you have to do to prepare your lawn for fall?
Not have it be dead from a drought. Oh, and speaking of Apple, now here...
I kept trying to find the catch in this.
Well, I think I saw the catch. But first, let's talk about the headline.
Apple reverses stance on iPhone repairs and will supply parts to independent shops for the first time. The only thing that I saw that was slightly untoward is you have to complete an Apple training program, but they don't have to be Apple certified repair shops.
Not only do you have to complete an Apple training program, but they claim that you have to be like in good standing with Apple. And if you get a lot of complaints or they feel like your work for whatever reason is not up to par, you will lose your designation. So they're kind of gatekeeping this.
Yeah.
I don't want to dilute the brand, is what you mean.
And these do have to be out of warranty. So if it's something that they could get under warranty at the Genius Bar, even if it's like simple and they're like, I don't want to drive 5 hours, just do it, I don't think you're allowed to do that.
Wow.
So it's something though, right?
Yeah.
It's something. That really should have been the title of this.
Is it? I feel like it's a Trojan horse, but maybe not. Maybe the Apple was like, look, if we don't do this, the government's going to be here and nobody wants to wake up the government. So let's do this because this is less terrible.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely could be that because right to repair could be a 2020
platform
election
thing. Yeah.
I think
2019's almost over. That's so weird.
Crazy. So we have seen from Intel, at least, the real struggle of squeezing out more smaller capacitors. How hard is it?
Well, transistors.
Transistors. AMD seems to be doing better, but we're still, we're kind of hitting a cliff here.
AMD's doing better with TSMC to the point that the other girls are suing their...
But we're still not getting the kind of advances year after year that we used to. So what's the solution? Well, perhaps a series of tubes.
Ars Technica says that this 16-bit RISC-V processor has been made with carbon nanotubes. Clever tricks works around major hurdles, but it's not a route to high performance. So this chip's not fast. RISC-V is not a fast ISA yet, but for embedded systems and crap like that, it's actually pretty amazing. This is a microprocessor made with carbon nanotubes, and it's like around 1 megahertz or 2 megahertz. It had the speed, I think.
It was not fast.
No, it's definitely not fast.
It was also not easy to make because the old way we thought about doing it was growing the tubes where we wanted them. It turns out those tubes just do whatever they want. You can't control them. So the new way of doing it, just grow the tubes, and wherever they end up going, build around them.
So with carbon nanotubes, it can be a semiconductor or a conductor, metallic. So those are metallic nanotubes. And no matter what we do, we can't get the purity of semiconductive carbon nanotubes above like 99.9%. So they tried a whole bunch of different configurations of transistors and found a transistor configuration made out of carbon nanotubes that was more tolerant of the metal tube. So now we're designing with the defects in mind. And that actually produced a reliable working circuit, which was like the scientists, like some of the quotes from the scientists were like, we were kind of surprised we got it working as quick as we did.
There are also some crazy things where they'll build them vertically and then go in and dope them where they need and then build another structure on top of that and then shear that all off to get rid of the stuff they don't want. It's very involved to get 1 megahertz. So can this grow exponentially and become the new way we do chips?
At this rate, it's going to take about 30 years, which makes me sad. I don't want to
probably still be alive.
I don't want to be stuck at 5 gigahertz for the next 30 years. That's not acceptable.
Yeah, well.
You'll see it. Right before we all die.
So last week we talked about the report that vaping will give you some crazy disease.
Like swamp lung. We got a lot of angry.
I was just going to say that. The vape army came out. Now, do you think...
Vape nation.
Was it the vapors, or was that the seemingly million of people who have these little vape shops all over the world?
It's probably people with vape shops, but there was, like, the biggest piece of information that was missing from the previous article is that so far it seems like everybody that's affected by swamp lung or whatever the hell that was were using aftermarket parts or trying to do like the cannabis thing and get like THC infused oil or whatever, and that's what led to swamp lung.
Now we know somebody who buys Chinese vape juice off of eBay.
We do. My husband actually got one of the things described in this article.
Really?
He got one for the plane, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant he had the disease.
No, he doesn't have swamp lung that we know of. He actually has managed, it makes me angry because he's managed to avoid getting sick. We sleep right next to each other every night, and he just sleeps like a baby. And
it's that vape.
he's got some sort of immune buff.
So anyway.
So there may be more to that story. We don't know.
But so the thing about it is, Juul actually, it's not part of this story, but Juul actually came out and was like, maybe you shouldn't be vaping under certain circumstances. But anyway, that's not what this is about. I just wanted to mention that because, you know, the vape people, they'll come out there. It's like the
come at me, bro.
SJW people, you know, they'll come after you. But this story is about Juul, and we saw this over and over and over with the tobacco companies. This is the chink in the armor where they will destroy you if you are one of these companies. And it's just playing out again.
The FTC is reportedly investigating Juul over deceptive teen-focused marketing practices. And it's definitely working if the local college campuses are anything to be judged by.
There's so many vapors.
Even high schoolers. I visited one of my younger cousins, and one of her friends came over to pick her up, and she had one of the little... I was like, what the hell is that? And she was like, oh, it's my Juul. It's what I smoke.
They are very small.
They're very tiny.
Look at them.
Yeah, that's about the size of the one the girl had.
Do you think this is something that TechSpot put together? Because this is a very, youth-focused collage here. So anyway, the big point of contention here, aside from their advertising, which I don't think that's official Juul advertising.
No, it's much cooler looking than that.
But one of the things they did was they went after influencers. Mm-hmm. And they paid people on Instagram and I don't know where else, but social media, to be like, oh, hey everybody, here it's me, your boy, just hitting my Juul, and they're saying that is totally focused toward children.
Yeah.
Now Juul comes back and says we did that for 2 weeks, we paid them $30,000, and then we stopped. So get off our backs.
Damage was done at that point though, because I do know high schoolers who.
I think that'll be enough for the FTC to hang them.
Yeah.
Because look at the smoking cartoons. Remember those? That was just scary.
The smoking was
everyone. Yeah.
Smoking advertising there were no rules in the beginning. It's 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Marlboro, and they did.
The 90s, it was starting to change. Like, I remember people were starting to be like, oh, smoking's gross when I was a kid. But
Yeah, but that was, 40 years later.
yeah.
SpaceX. Oh, man, I had a good intro for this one.
And you've
I
lost
forgot it. So here in this office, one of the most dreaded things that you can say to somebody is, let's hop on a call.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You want to see everyone, like, disperse immediately? Just say, like, hey, we have a meeting. Or, like, we have to hop on a call.
I do not want to hop on a call, ever. But
Doesn't accomplish anything because everybody remembers something different.
what if we enter into a
No one takes
world
meeting minutes.
where the new phrase is, let's hop up to space?
SpaceX launches Starship Hopper on a dramatic test flight. So this is literally just a test rocket, but it's the size of a truck. But that's all it is. It's literally just the rocket.
Yeah, so this is a big platform, and it's much larger than the Super Heavy. And you put all the stuff that you want in space on that platform, and you hop it up there, and then that thing just floats right back down. Lands
Neat.
on its- Pretty
It
cool,
didn't
right?
explode or kill anyone. Good job, Elon Musk.
Although
Not the engineers, Elon Musk.
the next story, this made me angry.
Police sent explosion warnings to residents near SpaceX's South Texas launch site ahead of there's an ad blocker.
Ad blocker. It
Oh,
looks like you're
we-
using an ad blocker.
We actually covered this last week, but it told people it's like go outside because if the rocket explodes, it could be bad for you if you're inside your house and the shockwave hits. And
No.
it's safer if you're outside.
Well, it didn't have to necessarily explode. If they had to do like a evasive maneuver or whatever, if they had to fire those rockets to 100% for any reason, it had been shown to shatter windows. And if you were inside the house at the time, the pressurization thing would be like a Hellfire missile. It's like probably put your eardrums out. But they didn't just send out a memo. Law enforcement went door to door. And it was like, here's the time that this is flying. Do not be in your house. And we're going to be checking. That's not, who says?
Hey, they elected to live near the space rocket test. No,
Oh, yeah, they bought their house in the 60s knowing damn well that Elon Musk was going to be launching a giant rocket.
That damn mad genius.
So that should not be allowed. I'm all for moving space science forward, but not at the cost of dragging people out of their homes.
It's kind of funny, though.
I mean, what if that would have happened and we had some kind of event where all the glass was broken in one night?
Wait.
Wait a second.
Oh, so I've decided that every week we do data leak stories, and it's always the same story. So we're just going to burn through them real quick. We
Do
got
it.
3 this week.
Go.
It's the breach of the week. Company behind the Foxit PDF Reader announces a security breach. Did you pay for Foxit Reader? Do you have an account on their website? Your data's in the wild. Your IP address, your name, your credit card number, whatever.
Oh, it's terrible.
Verdict. Exclusive Teletext Holidays. That's a UK travel agency service. Data breach has exposed 212,000 customer call recordings. So you don't even you can be the Luddite. You can be the world's most amazing Luddite. Just because you talked to them, there was a recording on a bucket somewhere.
You know who's going to love that? The Facebook and Apple AI voice
Yeah, it can be
recorder.
trained on that.
And finally,
It was sensitive data from a U.S. anti-terror program, and terrorists could have gotten to it for years, records show. So this was like bioterrorism alert. Like, in what ways are we most vulnerable to bioterrorism? It was prepared as a handy guide for terrorists on a website, and if a terrorist had downloaded it, it probably would have accelerated the terror program like years and years and years.
and that was our week in data breaches.
Oh,
Breach
it's
of the
terrible.
week.
Like, why did this happen?
Oh, no.
And now on to something a little more terrifying, which has to do with iPhones. But here's the terrifying part. This has been going on for years. And if you were one of these people, it was totally random, by the way. A lot of times when we talk about something this complex, it's like, well, they're just going to go after the spies and the state people and stuff, right? No, this was random.
Google says hackers have put monitoring implants in iPhones for years. This was amazing. This is like the Guardian doesn't have the technical details here, but the technical details on this are incredible. This compromise of the iPhone happened entirely in RAM. So if you rebooted your phone, it would no longer be compromised. But they were able to, because it was in RAM and it was chaining together a bunch of different exploits. They were able to read your keychain and extract your private keys from your keychain and read stuff from memory, which could have included things like your plain text passwords and anything that you entered on a web form, the websites that you go to, your email traffic, literally anything on the phone, because it was living in RAM.
And how do you get this? You have to download an app?
Nope. Just visit a web page.
Now, also...
thanks, Safari.
I don't know if they ever found one that actually worked like this, but it could have easily been used as a dropper as well.
Yes.
Which would have made it persistent.
Yeah.
Because then they could have put malware on your phone, although then it wouldn't have been as invisible as it is. Because the reason this has been going on for years, nobody ever caught it, is because it was in memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing to catch.
This is Google's paid like HackerOne team or whatever, like the paid external like Google like super security force. Those guys are doing some seriously impressive work. I mean, this is not just one exploit. This was a whole series of exploits. So this was probably sponsored by nation states.
And there was no model of iPhone that was immune to this.
That's crazy.
And presumably still isn't.
I wonder if this is how GrayKey did their thing. Because remember, it's like maybe it doesn't go through the USB port anymore. It's like you just got to get it to go to a web page. But the web page
have to get into it to go to the web page.
It's going to go to web pages on its own in the background, just like the Apple services and stuff. You just got to lie to it on the internet or on the network.
Oh, point the DNS at a different place? Oh,
Yeah.
I could just do that. Right? You wouldn't need a machine for that. It'd be funny if that whole machine was just some kind of song and dance.
That would be kind of funny.
Remember that time that Apple was listening to people have sex and transcribing it? Well, they've changed their mind about that.
Yikes.
Not really.
Apple is turning Siri audio clip review off by default and bringing it in-house. So if it's going to be off by default, they're not, who would opt into that?
Voyeurs or exhibitionists. They're the voyeurs. So instead of Indians listening to you have sex, you can have Californians.
That's not going to last long.
Americans. American made. We need to bring jobs back to America.
We need to bring the sex listeners into America. Make America creepy again. We also talked last week about if you have one of the older model recalled MacBooks, can't get on a plane. But it turns out that airports, they can't really tell the difference. Yeah. And they're not going to bother to try to figure it out.
Airlines are banning all MacBooks in checked luggage, regardless of their recall status. It's like, oh, that's a MacBook, can't be in your checked luggage. I don't trust having that expensive of a piece of technology in my checked luggage. How wealthy do you have to be to put something like that in your checked luggage?
And they also talked about some of them, I think there were more foreign ones, not ones in the U.S. They wouldn't even let you bring it on with you.
Wow.
I bet the kind of people who do that are probably people who get drinks at the airport bar. We made that mistake.
You shouldn't have done that.
What'd you get?
I got a lemon drop martini, and husband got some sort of whiskey over the rocks, and it was $40.
Did you tell him, it's our honeymoon?
We did talk to the bartender because she was asking why we were flying, and we told her we're going on our honeymoon, and then...
It should have been like, it's none of your business, pig.
Yeah, that would have been a good thing to do in the airport. Right before we boarded our flight.
Well, this one could also probably be an of the week, although this week we only have one of them.
Trojan Dropper malware found an Android app with 100 million downloads. This is, again, the Google security team. I think it's a Google security team. The analysis pattern of how they find this is interesting. They look at applications that have a lot of downloads, that have a high rating, that all of a sudden don't have a high rating, and then investigate those applications. And sure enough, that pattern was with this application. You take a picture with your phone and it de-skews it and turns it into a clean scan of that document. It got malware.
Cam Scanner is the name of it. And it was another one of these situations where it's not, the developers aren't the ones that did it. They didn't want this, but it happened. I think, was it a library?
Yeah, it was a library that was added
library.
or whatever.
So there's so many downstream parts, even in software these days, that you never know which one that they're going to get to. Might be the cellular radio that the CIA hacks into and ships to you. That's kind of what a library is. And finally, we have this week's big ransomware story.
No.
And so they've been going after schools, they've been going after state, government type things, and big business has always been in the crosshairs. But they found an exciting new vector.
Ransomware has hit hundreds of dentist offices in the U.S. A ransomware group gains access to the dental software backend, deploys ransomware on customer systems. So this company that was targeted by the malware people was a managed service provider, an MSP. And what that is basically you outsource your technology to a managed service provider and they do all the stuff. So the malware was literally installed by the managed service provider's console that they use for deploying patches and making sure machines are up to date. So that was bad.
Yeah, it didn't matter how good your dentist office IT security was. It could be absolutely perfect, hermetically sealed digitally, and it didn't matter because you were paying these other people and they got in. Of course, you're going to give them access.
Yeah.
Now, because of that, this company, Perksoft, they paid the ransom. You got to wonder how much that was.
Yeah, it's probably a lot.
That was a lot of dentist
I
offices.
guarantee the hackers knew exactly what they had done.
Yeah, so they paid, it was two kinds of software. I think they had to pay 2 ransomwares. And they built a decryption tool, which they shipped out to all the dentists. But the dentists are saying it's not working in every case.
Yeah, some of the dentists are like, I didn't get back all my files, and that's how a lot of this malware uses a rotating key. So unless you get all of the keys, or all of the keys are saved properly, you're screwed. You're completely screwed.
And so is little Timmy, who, needed a root canal, and now we'll never know.
Gonna have to redo all his x-rays.
All I can think about, I'm trying to think of like some sort of pun we can use for a title about the elf that wanted to be a dentist in the Rudolph universe, but I can't remember the name of the elf now, and it's really bothering me.
Isn't it Herbie or Hermie?
Hermie wants to be a dentist.
Hermie wants to decrypt his files?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that everybody wants to not have encrypted files. That would be nice. This company was also responsible for backups. So they were, I don't know, maybe the companies that couldn't recover their malware, maybe the host company will have backups.
Let's restore your backup. Oh, wait.
That gives me heartburn just thinking about that, because it's just like, oh, what a nightmare.
And what an unpleasant thing. Even if the dentist office calls you up and they're like, listen, this is our fault. This is no cost to you, but we're going to have to do all that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rough.
Ugh.
Well, that's all we got for Security. Friday, we will do robots and nonsense.
The 2 best sections.
That's a very long set of news this week.
Not quite an hour this time.
Today is Friday, September 6th.
It's finally Friday.
Yes, in that voice. And today is robots and nonsense.
So, AI. AI is the buzzword of our time. And no matter who you are, you're looking to find a way to make your product have something to do with AI. And that's true of Minecraft.
Minecraft is getting an AI assistant from Facebook and MIT.
All right.
So, yeah, a game that is supposed to simulate surviving and doing all the little menial tasks from surviving is giving you a way to automate that with AI?
It sounded like the assistant was going to help you build things. So it was like, hey, help me, or help you with tasks, including build things. So like, hey, help me do this, or help me find lava, or help me whatever.
But it's kind of going in both directions, because as the AI helps you and you define a goal, it's also learning from you to be able to do those things better by itself in the future. So
seems like with millions of Minecraft players that AI would learn everything it needs to fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And without a lot of headache.
It's amazing how well Minecraft has aged, because I still play it from time to time, just get back into it.
It's the beauty of, the fact that even when it was launched, it looked like garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting ray tracing. The ray tracing
I
looks
saw
pretty
that.
amazing.
Yeah, but I don't think your average computer can.
Well, they've
No.
had lots of crazy
No.
hacks that can handle that too, but
If you've got a $1,200 video card, you can barely manage 1080p.
But it also has, it's that like make your own fun kind of game.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, that's going to be perennial. Right?
Like collecting all the villagers and making them your
breeding them.
Your slave citizens who must farm your lands for you.
Who would ever get tired of that?
It's a good update.
So robots have been flying planes for a long time now. We've got the whole drone program. We've got autonomous aerial vehicles. And that's usually done in software that interfaces directly with the flight controls. But what about old-fashioned planes that still have sticks and throttles? When are we going to get robots who can just sit down in the pilot seat? The time is now.
Robot pilot that can grab the flight controls gets its plane license. So yeah, it looks a little overly elaborate.
There it is.
But it can fly
Not
a plane.
Beautiful machine. But
Now, it can't actually sit in the seat, so I led you astray there. You have to remove the seat and bolt this guy in.
Looks like they had to remove both seats, but
That's probably
okay.
a one-seater because there's only one set of controls there. Oh, no, there's two there, right?
Yeah.
So I think the idea is this guy's going to be a co-pilot. So if the pilot is incapacitated for whatever reason, this thing can take over.
It's a giant life-size drone.
Yeah, and so, but it does not interface with the plane electronically. Or, like it doesn't, you don't plug in like telemetry or whatever. It uses computer vision to read the dials, although it doesn't look out the window. This is completely fly-by instrument. And it reaches out and grabs the flight stick and the throttle. Does it all manually. Pretty
that's
impressive.
cool, yeah.
Would you fly on a plane where that was flying it?
Probably.
I'm not sure that I would. Maybe after some testing.
Yeah.
A lot of testing.
Give it a few years.
How many hours does this pilot have again? Oh, 100. Oh, no, I'm not going to fly in that plane.
But 100 million in simulation.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably all right
Yeah.
then.
For the last 10 minutes, he's been hyperspeed simulating everything about this plane, so he's good. Don't worry.
Whoa.
If we do crash, it's going to be, you're not going to remember. Like, it's going to just be over so quickly that it's fine.
It's going to be catastrophic.
If he loses control, he's designed to just point it at the ground.
Like me in GTA.
So we have entered into this new world where some parts of the U.S. are okay with weed and some aren't. And the feds aren't. But
Arrest everybody and ask questions later.
they're pretending that they are maybe okay with it, but who knows when they'll change their mind. It's this crazy thing. But some places who are cool with it have turned to artificial intelligence to do something a little unexpected.
Illinois County to use algorithm to automatically expunge old marijuana convictions. So they're looking for like the non-violent, like possession kind of things and not the like armed robbery things. Those don't get expunged, but the other things do.
Armed robbery while high on marijuana? What percentage of marijuana arrests do you think that is? Hey man, I need to use a gun later. Let me get high.
I'm just telling you what they trained the AI to do.
So I assume that this AI is also going to go back, and after it expunges all this conviction, it's going to refund all that tax money we threw at this stupid thing. Is that something it can do?
We should figure out, I bet that's a data set. We could do an open records request and find out how many things were thrown out, and then we could guesstimate exactly how much taxpayer, like we're not going to get it back, but I would like to know that number.
Not just taxpayer money, but seizures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might actually have a net positive on that for like money that went into the coffers used to operate things.
Yeah, but we're paying the thugs?
Actually, that might be a basis for a lawsuit. That would be incredible. A lawyer goes after the state for seizing things that is now not illegal.
Yeah, good luck with your house getting raided and then finding child pornography. So, we've talked about deepfakes a lot, and we talked about that thing that Google does where they have what was the name of that thing where they'd make your appointments? I always forget the name of that.
Oh, the Google Assistant thing? I can't remember.
But it was really good at doing not your voice, but a voice. And then you kind of put the two together and put that with deepfakes, and you can realistically simulate voice. So what would you do with that? Well, Obviously, one of the first things someone thought to do with that was crime.
A new kind of cybercrime uses AI and your voice against you. As I was looking at this, I thought that this would be incredible if somebody got like Bill Gates' personal assistant's phone number and phoned them up as Bill Gates and was like, yeah, I've decided to donate $100,000 to this charity. Here's the bank account and routing number. Just go ahead and do that whenever you get a chance.
That's essentially what happened here.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. So this was a German company, and they had like the second in command, the guy who actually performed the tasks, and then the CEO was the one that they faked, that they simulated. They called him up and it was like, hey, I just did this deal and we need to get it done right now, so wire some money. Here's the information. And the guy was like, yes, sir. And he went and did it. And it went through and it was like, okay, you're going to get a confirmation or some kind of like return transfer or something pretty soon. In the meantime, I just did another deal. So go ahead and send more money. And this guy, to his credit, was like, wait a minute. That doesn't seem right. In fact, the CEO had nothing to do with it. It was all simulated.
That's crazy.
Terrifying.
We're living in a time where hop on a call might not be reliable. Well, that might be worse because it might mean we have to meet in person.
What a great excuse that would be if we could use it. It's like, I'm sorry, we don't hop on calls. It's insecure.
You're going to have to use your words to articulate what's required.
Load the pigeon and put your wax brand on it so we can be sure. So we've got robots that do a lot of different things, and it's kind of weird because we report on these robots, and yet none of them are in our lives yet. Where are these robots? Where are these smart vending machines?
We don't even have the spill robot.
Where are the
Major
cooking
urban
robots?
centers, probably.
Yeah, but they're not rolling out. They're not successful, I guess, because we need them. We need these robots.
No one cares about Kentucky.
And here's another robot that we'll probably never get.
Bear Robotics is raising big bucks for robots that deliver food to restaurant patrons. This seems amazing. If I can hit a button on my table and have instant drink refills, that would make both of our lives easier.
But here's my question about this little guy, and I don't know if they answered this or not. Does he just come to the edge of the table and then I got to reach it over?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
That's not as good. I mean, it's going to be like, you could still go to a full service restaurant, but I would be, for the level of service that we usually get in a restaurant, this is probably better.
But would this little robot bring us X plus certain number of rolls?
No.
He would never deviate from the roll algorithm.
Yeah.
The days of getting lucky with roll count are over once the robots take over. Although I guess he probably wouldn't be loading the basket, right?
Right.
So it'd still be...
Maybe we need a helper. Like the robot is an assistant for a human being, and so the two of them, it's like the buddy cop thing, except it's a robot and a human working together.
I always feel bad for waiters when they have to carry like the super hot plates on their arms.
Well, that's the other thing. If that plate is the temperature of the sun, and I'm the guy sitting on the edge, and I got to unload everybody's hot plate, that sucks. What about if you had just a round table that could rotate?
Like a lazy Susan.
And then this guy could just slide everything over onto
the malfunctions of that would be amazing, where the table like starts accelerating and then the centrifugal
just,
force
he keeps loading projectiles onto it as it launches them across.
That would be amazing.
But you know what? Waiter robot, although we talk about self-driving trucks and how those are going to disrupt the job market, isn't food service like number 2 or 3 for jobs?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
aren't we like 5 years overdue for our Black & Decker food dehydrator also?
Food dehydrator?
Yeah, from like Back to the Future, they put a little tiny pizza in and it rehydrated it into a full pizza.
Oh, a rehydrator.
I didn't realize we were talking about Back to the Future. I thought we'd actually talked about something like that. So, Krista, did you read this one?
I did. I was very excited about this story.
This is hilarious. The problem with robots, and if we look back at that previous robot, he was pretty nondescript, right?
Yeah, I would have thought that was a trash can if I wasn't paying attention.
Nothing.
Just literal garbage. Nothing of value.
Pour your drink on it.
The robot's just like feelings deleted.
So the thing about robots is people don't necessarily empathize with them. And we've seen a lot of these little tiny delivery robots, people will attack them.
I don't understand attacking them. I could see like accidentally running into one or not paying attention to it, but like I don't understand attacking.
But we also talked about the spill robots.
Yeah, people just avoid them.
People had a lot of contempt and sometimes fear Sometimes people would think that the robot was stalking them as they went from mile to mile.
You have 30 seconds to comply.
So what do you do to make people less terrified of your robot? It might be simpler than you can imagine.
How googly eyes has solved one of today's trickiest UX problems.
And it sure does, doesn't it?
Does it? It's adorable.
The article makes you think that it's just like the stick-on plastic googly eyes, but these are actually
they move.
They're articulated googly eyes. It looks in the direction that it's going to go, and like kids apparently were standing on this thing and just
like climbing all over
abusing
it.
the crap out of it, and the googly eyes was all it took to make them stop.
So this thing, it helps you find books in a library. That little you can see that little podium that's coming up. That's a tablet. And that lets you punch in what you're looking for. And this guy knows where everything is in the library, so he will guide you to it. Pretty cool.
If I'm ever in Helsinki, I really want to see this library because, like, growing up, our local library, which was honestly very amazing, had trouble affording roof repairs.
Yeah. And then they have, like, this thing.
You know, my dad is on the board for that library. And it turns out that the guy who was been running it up until like the last 10 years just hoarded all the money. And they've got this massive surplus. And they're trying to figure out what to spend it on.
Well, that's encouraging because I can remember, several collections were ruined by the leaky roof at the old building. So,
And that guy was just squirreling it all away. So anyway, that's not the only thing they did for this robot. They also found that people were not using it for whatever reason. I would be excited to use that little guy. But so they gave him.
Doesn't look friendly, like without the eyes.
I guess pre-eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But even if he wasn't, if I didn't think he had a personality, I would like to see how good it is at finding the book that I want. Right. So what they did, they also gave it a little bit of personality in terms of its movement. So if he's left alone for too long, he'll actually like start to squirm around and make little noises to let you know that he's there.
I'm here to help.
If you come and you put in a book title and he finds it, once he finds it, he's very excited.
Yeah.
He'll like do a little dance and beat. If he can't find it, he seems sad.
Oh. Somebody needs to take the innards of this robot and put it into like one of the Comic Con, Dragon Con, like R2-D2 mods and just have that. Of course, I guess with Disney, they'd probably file a lawsuit.
Yeah.
But having R2-D2 help you find a book and then making the happy R2-D2 beeping, that would be pretty cool.
I feel like they could make him friendlier even just by painting him, but like the eyes, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
The eyes that did a lot for him.
It is amazing what googly eyes can do. Now, they also put googly eyes on the spill robot.
Yeah.
But they weren't, like, I think they were just basic Google eyes, right? They didn't actuate and give it personality.
Well, that also serves a function because like people were running into it before because they didn't know which way it was going, and now like its eyes go in the direction it's going. So
brilliant move.
I wish that my UX problems could be solved. Just
Good
putting
point.
Have you
googly
tried?
eyes.
Have you tried putting?
I haven't
eyes?
tried putting it on a website or an
Yeah.
app. So
there was that JavaScript library that would put eyes on your page that would follow the mouse.
oh, that's true. Can you imagine just, like selling that to a client? What is this? What does this solve?
This might not make any sense to you, but trust me, this is going to affect sales.
All the Fortune 500 companies are going to start doing this. So this one, I put this in because they use the word drone, but
It's hard to imagine.
it's not actually a robot.
No.
It's actually completely controlled, but it still is an interesting story.
Drone fishermen can land in hot water as regulator investigates. They're actually having trouble finding what this guy did wrong, but they built a drone
I just know something did go wrong.
that a person could ride, and he used it to. So, like, they made a video. Like, this whole thing was designed to go viral, but they made a video of this guy fishing while hanging from a chair, like flown by a drone, and so they think that maybe he violated the rule where it's like you're not supposed to fly a drone within 30 meters of a human being. Maybe.
Yeah, so it wasn't autonomous in any way. His friend was flying the drone as he was fishing.
And they were in communication.
Yeah, and they had tested a much heavier load for a much longer amount of time before they did this.
And he wasn't really going fishing from the drone. It was just, it's like they thought it would make a funny video.
And he was wearing...
And it did.
He was wearing a full wetsuit.
But no life jacket.
No life jacket because, and this seems like a good idea, he was afraid that would the drone come down on top of him, the life jacket could get bound up in the rotors.
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, and swim away. So it seems like that he knew the risks and he did it himself, and I don't think the regulators need to be involved here.
But here, I'm going to advocate on the side of the government. Imagine that. What about if you had 50 guys doing this?
I think that would be amazing for the next season of America's Funniest Home Videos. Or Canada's
America's Most Tragic Home Videos?
Do they still make that show?
I doubt it.
Canada's Funniest Home Videos? I don't know.
It's called Twitter now.
Speaking of Twitter.
So yeah, Twitter, from time to time, the government agencies will put out requests of things that they need. They're looking to buy a bunch of something or, hire a bunch of something. There was that time that the IRS needed 40,000 rounds of 10 millimeter.
Don't ask why.
Yeah, so this was in that vein.
Attention city dwellers, we're interested in identifying university-owned or commercially managed underground urban tunnels and facilities able to host research and experimentation. 1, why does this need to be in the city? 2, what are they doing?
And 3, this is short notice. They asked for submissions by August 30th at 5 p.m. And then they posted some pictures to give you an idea of what kind of facilities they were looking for.
And this tweet was on the 28th at 8:30 a.m. So
someone forgot to do their job.
Obviously, a lot of people, joked about this and were like, what's going on here? Are you expecting a world-ending event? But they claim no, they're doing training that would be, like how to deal with things like this, shelters like this. So they want a real live one to run their training in.
The ideal space would be a human-made underground environment spanning several city blocks with a complex layout and multiple stories, including atriums, tunnels, stairwells. Spaces that are currently closed off from pedestrians or can be temporarily used for testing are of interest.
Are they making Fallout vaults?
What if they were just setting up the most badass paintball game that's ever existed?
It's a company team building exercise.
I mean, it would be really awesome to shut down the Washington D.C. Metro and do that kind of thing there because you saw from Fallout that it's actually pretty cool down there.
Well, in a you're gonna die terrifying kind of way, sure.
Speaking of dying and terrifying.
Moving on to nonsense, Krista. Of course, I added this one.
You put this for me.
Just for you because you are terrified.
I'm not terrified of black holes, but I do have an irrational fear.
Well, how about the most badass black hole that's ever existed?
Rumors are swirling around a black hole discovery. So, was the discovery just that there was a giant black hole?
The biggest one we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's crazier than that. It's the physics of it mean that a black hole with this mass should not exist.
Because it would be a supernova, right?
Well, no, it doesn't for it to collapse in on itself and be this mass. It doesn't make sense.
Not an actual picture.
No.
As it turns out, hard to get a picture of a black hole.
Yeah. So we're not entirely sure that it is a black hole. We know about it indirectly because of observation of gravitational waves, and we're trying to figure that out. But wouldn't it be crazy if if we do the math and we discover and it's this cannot be a naturally occurring black hole?
It's a warp hole. That's the premise of Interstellar. A wormhole.
Now, Krista, last week we found out that black holes can eat neutron stars. And in fact, one is, it's not happening right now. Ever how many years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, one was being eaten, and we found it.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So that means
it could spiral into our galaxy at any moment.
That means that overall black hole activity might be increasing as they track you closer and closer.
I honestly just don't know what to be afraid of most.
What else is in the running?
The giant super earthquake on the west coast.
Oh, the caldera. Yeah,
no, not the caldera. There's another one further up north. They say that there was a giant event, an earthquake that hit in Washington and Oregon.
That was 6.3.
Yeah, and they were and it caused a massive tsunami in Japan years and years ago and flooded half the
Well, listen, if that goes, the caldera's gonna go.
Surely, right? I would think so.
That's a combo event.
I read an article about that. We should include it one week. It's old, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I saw that same article. No, something happened this last week there, right?
Did there?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there was an earthquake.
Oh. Isn't that good though? They say if it's like small earthquakes, it means it's releasing pressure
What
normally.
if the earthquake is caused by black hole activity? That's how it's getting you.
We covered that last week.
Did we?
No, we didn't. We did it on the podcast.
Oh,
We did talk about this on the podcast. All right, new story.
Spoilers.
TSA bans Star Wars Galaxy's Edge thermal detonator Coca-Cola bottles.
There they are. Now
TSA, happiest place on earth.
I saw a more recent story that said that they walked this back
Really?
and said you could have them on the.
Probably because there was a lot of backlash from families going to Disney.
Well, you could literally buy them in the airport and some of the airport.
I thought it was
shops.
just at Disney.
Is it?
Yeah,
I thought this was Disney specific.
That's that new Disney Star Wars section that they've got.
Oh,
And those things are like $12.
that's not good. You could definitely buy some Star Wars toys in one of the like the in motion entertainment thing. Maybe it was not a drink, but
We went through. I think we did that on the Twitch stream. We went through the prices, and they're crazy. And so you can get a special mug that has blue mixed drink in it. You know, like the blue shit that he was drinking in that movie. $40.
Whew.
wow, I can't afford to go to Disneyland.
Especially not the Star Wars section. And you're only allowed to stay there for a couple hours.
That's crazy.
But
And
now
people will do it.
you can bring the lightsabers that they sell you for a couple $100. You can bring those on the plane. It's the world we live in. This story was incredible.
I didn't see this one.
Now, before we talk about this one, though, have you heard of the Mandela effect?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So, didn't mean to do that yet. Let me give you a little quiz, right? In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the evil witch, what did she say to the mirror?
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Who's
Nope.
the fairest of them all?
Nope. She said, magic mirror on the wall.
Oh,
Blows your mind, right?
yeah.
Everybody remembers mirror, mirror on the wall. Now, in Empire Strikes Back, what does Darth Vader say to Luke after he cuts his hand off?
I'm your father, but not really.
What's the full thing?
Luke, I'm your father?
Wrong. It's no, I am your father.
Oh.
But everybody thinks it's Luke, I am your father.
There are
right?
bigger ones like the.
Bernstein Bears?
There's that. There's Shaquille O'Neal thing where they thought he was in a movie about being a genie.
Shazam?
Yeah, but
I remember that movie.
But it's not a real movie. That one blew my mind.
So, and the biggest one is Nelson Mandela, right? Like, people have real memories of Nelson Mandela dying in the 80s. But he didn't. He died in like 2013. So, this is very much in that same vein.
I tried to glitch the simulation and all I got was a bottle of pee. A growing community called Randonauts believe that journeying to random locations can help put us in new realities.
So this is the same idea. Now, the idea behind the Mandela effect is like, mirror, mirror on the wall, I would fight you if you told me. But if I hadn't watched a video about that and they played the real thing. The theory that some people have is that this is the multiverse, right? And at some point, some of us are crossing over. And it's almost exactly the same with tiny, tiny differences.
Well, that explains the night terrors.
And stuff like deja vu and, you know, these little inconsistencies with your memory have to do with that.
Definitely not that we're getting older.
Yeah, but this affects huge swaths of people. Like, we all remember them.
We're all different.
In fact, I heard in that same video, they were playing James Earl Jones. He was being interviewed about that, and he quotes it as, Luke, I am your father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the idea here is that if we're in a simulation or if we're in the multiverse or whatever, then our intentions, it's kind of like speculative execution, right? Like, the program knows what you're going to do because you do a routine, or you think about what you're going to do ahead of time. So how can you beat that? Travel to random coordinates.
And then if you disappear from that city and reappear in another city, you'll know that you're in the multiverse.
Well, will you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I randomly selected Seattle and I showed up in Dallas, I would know. I would think.
I guess. I mean, if you jumped universes, though. But I guess if it was the AI. Now, these people have talked about some of the effects that they've seen, and they claim, and of course, you know, take this with a grain of salt, that they will sometimes come up on wildlife that's just standing completely still, as if it's loading.
Or it's scared because it sees someone near it and it freezes.
I guess actually technically you would have memories of going to Seattle, but then when you look at your old ticket stub, it would be Dallas.
Well, that's less. This is less multiverse and more break the algorithm, break the simulation. So you're trying to get ahead of the predictive execution, far enough ahead that it can't cache ahead of you.
It sounds like, with the animal thing, it sounds like someone who doesn't know anything about animal behavior. Like,
They had some other examples. I can't remember exactly what they were, but there was just weird stuff.
I've definitely seen MPEG artifacts in the sky.
so did the people who tried to predict Sombra in Overwatch.
So if you want to be one of these people, if you want to be a randonaut, they actually have an Instagram, and you just message it and say, give me a place to go. And they'll give you coordinates, and you're supposed to just drop everything that you're doing and go there as quickly as possible to try to outrun the processing power and break the cycle. And they also believe that the more of us that are doing that,
the more likely it is to break things.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I like, it's not really the same thing, but sometimes I would just I called them mental health days, but it was just a day where I would just do whatever I wanted to do. It's kind of the same thing.
How many of those days were playing Minecraft?
I didn't play a lot of games when I was in college and stuff. I actually didn't download Minecraft because I knew I would no life it, and I had to finish my senior work.
How's World of Warcraft going?
It's okay. I'm not super into it yet. I'm level 12, I think.
Last time we talked to you, you're only level 10, so
you're
moving slow.
Yeah.
Not like Overwatch at all.
No, Overwatch really hit me hard. Yeah.
Double platinum something or other.
No, this game, it's fine. I've played it with friends, but I'm not getting I don't have the nostalgia factor for it either because I didn't play it when it came out years ago. So.
And Wendell, you said that you weren't interested in going to the Star Wars or the Disney Star Wars experience, right?
Right.
No, you don't want a $40 drink, which I don't know what's wrong with you.
But buy more products. Consume.
What if in another Star Wars experience you could go into space? Asterix.
We finally have more details on that Star Wars hotel. It's not really a hotel at all. So, yeah, this is the Star Wars space experience or whatever.
Star Cruiser.
Who cares?
Except it's not.
It's not Star Trek.
It's not a Star Cruiser. It's just a building where they've blacked out all the windows and made it a simulated space experience. Did you catch what it cost?
No.
I don't know if they mentioned that, but it's going to be crazy.
It seemed like that this was just a repurposed ride they already had. There was I think when I was 11 or 12, I went to Disney, and there was a small shuttle bus size thing that was totally already a Star Wars experience, the 70s Star Wars.
Oh yeah, they had the
Space
things.
Mountain?
Yeah, it was
the moving. Yeah, I remember that. That was really cool actually. But you going to live here for a day or two. This is actually a destination but when you leave your room, the whole thing is simulated that you're on some kind of starship.
Oh.
And you can go interact with things, and
you just can't leave for a day or two.
You probably can't leave, which means that the restaurants are going to be about $100 a plate.
Mm-hmm.
The water fountains are going to require credits.
Why don't they just do a Star Wars themed cruise ship? Because that would be more realistic. Because it's I want to leave, and it's you're going to drown.
Well, it'd be tougher. I mean, a lot of the draw of a cruise ship is being on deck.
Yeah, and enjoying the ocean, enjoying the islands you stop by.
Do the cruise? Not all cruise ships have rooms that open to indoors, right?
Right.
So, outside your room is the vacuum of space. Enjoy your stay.
That seems like what it is. I don't know.
Oh, man. So, I did not know about this. Is maybe one of the darkest.
I didn't see the story.
Oh, you're going to love this, Krista. This is going to make your skin crawl. So, there are parts of the internet that are dedicated to finding out and doxing the information of porn stars, their addresses and real names. So, wow, that's creepy, right? I mean, because guys are going to get obsessed and try to visit. Well, Bang Brothers found out about this and decided to take action.
It was they bought a huge porn doxing forum and set fire to it. So the doxing forum that they bought was Porn WikiLeaks, which is a forum dedicated to revealing the names and personal information of porn performers, including several in the Girls Do Porn trial.
Now, I don't know what the Girls Do Porn trial is, do you?
No, I had no idea what that was. But the pictures from the hard drives being on fire was pretty nice.
So that's what they tweeted. And
I think like some neckbeard is just like, no, the sacred tapes.
I worked so hard. I'm sure they keep local copies.
Like, I really don't. I really don't get this. And it's crazy, too, because, like, California and a bunch of other places require by law that you maintain records on this kind of thing. So, of course, it's going to leak. Or, of course, if you know what you're doing, you can go and discover this information. But good Lord.
But also, I don't think most porn stars make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Like, they do well, I think, but I'm sure there's some who don't. And what you're getting in return for that fame and then this obsession is not enough to merit.
Yeah.
No. Well, and I feel this is like what we were talking about earlier with like low barrier to entry jobs. Like, there's probably dozens of people who try to make it in porn and just get exploited. So, or this sort of thing happens to them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a pretty girl, and turns out those are pretty common. So, unfortunate, but shout out to Bang Brothers, I guess, for maybe a bucket in the ocean.
Yeah.
in terms of
actual cost.
I've got the title for this episode of the news.
We're gonna forget it by Tuesday.
No, I don't. I won't forget this one. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
I don't think you're ready for moon jelly.
China's lunar rover has found something weird on the far side of the moon. It's some kind of jelly.
Is it jelly?
They said it's a gel-like substance, a very colorful gel-like substance.
It's moon sand.
Well, that is
moon sand's not really gel, I guess, but
the most simple explanation is maybe some kind of glass, and glass technically is a liquid, so I guess. But I'm pretty sure what this is something that's going to get stuck. Once we take a lander back to the moon, it's going to land in it, and then they're going to, one of the astronauts is going to step in it. They're going to bring that home.
And then it's going to be like the blob.
That's going to be the end of humanity. Moon jelly is going to kill us all. But the good news is, the lunar rover was scheduled to move on from this place, but now that they've seen the moon jelly, they're going to stop and study it.
It's like, we got to figure out what this is.
One of the astronauts is just eating it. Spreading it on toast.
There's no people on the moon. This is all robots.
Where did you get that bread?
Don't worry about it. He just had it stuffed in a spacesuit.
Well, we talked about, some women go into pornography voluntarily and then get exploited or get their address revealed, and that's sad. But it's not nearly as sad as this story.
Court. Girl broke child porn law by texting explicit video of herself. Teen girl 16 is prosecuted under the law intended to protect people like her. So she exploited herself. What are prosecutors thinking?
Congratulations.
You
exploited yourself.
I've heard of stories like this before where just having it, even if it's yourself, or you send it to your also underage boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, it can still break that law.
Yeah, but who's the victim in that crime?
In theory,
what the hell was that?
What was that?
The window moved slightly.
Is there a bird in there?
I hope not. That would be bad.
So these laws are to protect children from exploitation, but how does prosecuting that same child?
In theory, I guess it could be leaked.
It seems like just a stern talking to, why did you do that? Don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't think you would want to try to actually
also
go after that case. But
if it got leaked, that's its own form of punishment.
Yeah.
So she doesn't benefit from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
seems like a mess and dumb.
It's a mad world we live in.
And that's going to follow her around for a long time. So that
well, now there's a news story about it.
Yeah.
They didn't name this person, but I bet in her hometown,
they probably
it's
know.
the talk of the town.
Yeah.
Especially if she got arrested. Oh, racism.
This was amazing.
We have a lot of issues with racism, although I think you could say that about any point in history after people actually started to meet each other, all right? Like, the only time there wasn't any racism is when the tribes hadn't contacted each other yet. And we're trying to do better, and some things that we do toward that are good. Most of them have terrible unintended consequences, and some of them are just horrible marketing tactics.
Cadbury has failed to solve racism with a multicolored chocolate bar.
And maybe not for the reason you expect, because looking at this picture, the chocolates are still segregated.
Well, the message here is separate but equal.
Still all chocolate. Still in the same bar, but in separate little designations.
You think there's some people who buy that and eat like the top 3/4 of it, and it's like, I ain't eating that last one.
White chocolate's not even the best flavor of chocolate.
But I think these are all the same flavor.
Triggered.
If they're different flavors.
Tell us your favorite chocolate flavor below.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if those were different flavors? And you're like with a group of friends and you really don't like one of the flavors? You're like, oh, this is just as good.
White chocolate's not just as good, though. It's not even
It's not even
chocolate.
really chocolate,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that's what I assumed. So I assumed the top part was white chocolate, the bottom was dark, and then the middle was like milk chocolate, and then that like caramely color was like either caramel or toffee.
I think they're all the same.
This is important information that could change.
No, you're right. Dark, blended, milk, and white chocolate all under one wrap. So they do taste
Blended
different.
is interracial? Interracial chocolate? Is that...
Also, it's in India, where I imagine that
Oh, that might be...
just being Indian, you could run the full gambit of these flesh colors,
Yeah.
right? It's interesting. Now, a lot of people were dismissing it on social media and making fun of it because they're like, oh, congratulations, you solved racism, like the headline said. But I also said they've sold out.
I mean, you are getting... It's basically a sampler pack of Cadbury chocolate.
Maybe that says something about how we should be in our society. We should sample them all. But then that just becomes sexual.
Yeah, it becomes a little weird when you say it that way. And with that tone.
Everybody's heard about the Popeye chicken sandwiches yet. I mean, this is
I don't
when
even like Popeyes, and I've heard of it.
when memes become reality, and
It's a dark world.
I don't want to
Weird
live on
things
this
happen.
planet anymore.
well, you're living in it. Not only are you living in it, but the last election was it. And for some reason, something just captures the imagination of the internet, and what happens? This kind of madness happens.
I have this sandwich on my mind, according to a man who is suing Popeyes for running out of the chicken sandwiches.
He went to 3 different locations trying
Yep.
to find it.
Popeyes
And there were
has said
long
they're-
waits.
And Popeyes even said that they're not going to restock it. So, yep.
Temporarily. I think they're like massing up for a big...
But they're going to do like the Vault strategy with Disney used to do that, right?
No, it's not necessarily that, but they don't want this kind of thing to happen.
Yeah.
So until they can get everybody a chicken sandwich, it's like the old, if you didn't bring enough for everybody, don't chew your gum in class. So they're trying to not have shortages. But you got to wonder, will lightning strike twice?
I don't think there's even a Popeyes in this town.
There's one over, there's one.
Oh.
There's
Well,
one
yeah,
here.
one over. There was one, they put one in like my family's tiny eastern Kentucky town briefly, and no one liked it. Which was strange because I figured like a chicken place would do really well there.
But it's not, isn't it kind of like a Creole style?
I think Bojangles is the superior.
Bojangles is good.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I don't know. My town did not take kindly to Popeyes.
None of us have had the sandwich, so I guess we can't really understand what it's like. Maybe we shouldn't judge. Maybe it did ruin this man's life to not get that sandwich. Krista, you got married too soon.
Oh.
You should have waited.
I got married. Yeah.
You should have waited, and you could have had this. You've probably never played this game, have you?
No.
Duke Nukem voice actor can now officiate your wedding. Or the big cat, if that's more your style.
I don't know Big the Cat.
Yeah, I didn't recognize that reference.
So, Hail to the King guy.
Do you think if Duke Nukem officiates your wedding, will he give you the "I'm going to tear off your head and shit down your neck" line?
If you
Do you
wanted to.
promise to tear off your head?
There's one of those video services where you can give, a voice actor something like $5 and then they'll say your thing. He's probably needs to go on there because
Yeah, there is one
He
where
said he was willing to do it. Like he was going to actually go do it.
Fiverr did that for a while with the the Fiverr guy, and then
Yeah, there's one where maybe that's what Fiverr is, where they'll call you for like 60 seconds and leave a message. That's a weird kind of star whoring yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do it for the right price.
I want you to do the Intel voice.
Every time we do a Juggalo story, they always use the same stock photo because it's a really good picture. But this story is only tentatively related to the posse, but it is an interesting headline.
A U.S. man is suing after a legless Juggalo crashed into him with a golf cart.
We're living in the best timeline. Here's a question. So the guy on the right, what's his name?
That is Shaggy. No, that's Violent J.
Violent J. Do you think he's like some sort of like different version of Guy Fieri? Like, is there some sort of weird world where like, what if Guy Fieri is the villain and Violent J is like the one who has to keep him in check, and that's why he's violent? Someone write that fanfic.
But they don't. So if one of them dies, the other one absorbs them. Or?
Yeah,
it's like Highlander. There could be
I don't
only
trust
one
Guy Fieri. I might trust
Juggalo.
Violent J.
Oh yeah, that's a throwaway story. Just an excuse to talk about the Juggalos. Now this story is terrifying.
Yeah.
If you'll think back to that was it the 60s with thalidomide. We had thalidomide.
I thought you were going to go for MK Ultra.
It was a way of reducing nausea, I think, right? Is that what it was?
I think that's what it was for pregnant
So,
women.
of course, if you're pregnant, you get nauseous a lot. You get morning sickness. So the doctors were like, oh, we've got something for that. Well, it had some unintended consequences on the little babies. And they were born a little weird. And so we have something like that here, except it's not an issue of the doctors not knowing. It's an issue of the pharmacy screwing up.
Babies develop werewolf syndrome after a medicine mix-up in Spain. So they were given minoxidil, which is like a hair-growing agent thing, and they became super hairy. But the good news is doctors have said that we expect this to clear up on its own, and the babies should be fine after they stop taking the hair growth hormone.
Apparently it was supposed to be some sort of like something for stomach ills.
Yeah. It was like an antacid or something.
Yeah.
So imagine how terrifying that is when you're like 4 years old, and it's like you grab the picture album. It's like, hey, mommy, let's look at my birth pictures. Oh, God.
Why was I so furry?
Also, what a great advertisement for the minoxidil or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It's like, this works. Just look at these werewolf babies. Do you think that there's some like real edgy goths that's like, oh, let's have a werewolf baby?
That would be bad. Yeah. I mean, given the opportunity, people are terrible. They would totally do that.
Smuggling that stuff into the hospital. Our last two stories are dark and both from Japan. And first is it's a weird solution.
Yeah, it's not really a solution
to an extreme problem that the Japanese have.
BBC has said that anti-groping stamp is going to let victims mark their assailants.
I tell you how I'd mark an assailant, and it's not with no damn stamp.
So we were talking about this the other day, and I was like, Krista, but their culture is all about like
not making a scene.
You will be really looked down on, and she was just insistent. It's like,
no, I'm kind of an asshole. Like if someone cat calls me, like.
So yeah.
Much less. I've never been groped, thankfully, but if I were groped, like fists would fly.
So the solution is supposed to be this little stamp. Now this is not visible outside of ultraviolet light. So while you're being groped, you go into your purse or whatever, and you pull out this little stamp, and you stamp your assailant. And
dot.
It's invisible.
Is it supposed to be like a social shamer? Yeah, if it's invisible, who cares?
I mean,
does the bus maybe like? You put it on them and then they put their hand under like the bus stop thing, like when they're getting their ticket, and then the bus person sees it, or the train person.
Imagine how easy that would be to abuse.
Yeah, like you could just mark anybody, yeah.
Right. And if that's not the case, and if this is just supposed to be like quote unquote shame, if you're the kind of guy who gets up in the morning and you're like, I'm going to grope somebody on the bus today. Like, is shame really a part of your world?
Yeah. I don't understand. I guess the only way I could see it is if, like, you managed to get it on the person who groped you without them noticing, and then somehow that alerts someone in the train station.
Yeah, I guess.
When they try to get a ticket or something later, and then the train station does something about
Or
it.
they don't know to wash it off. And then you go to the cops. And then they're like, no, I didn't do that. And they whip out the UV wand. That might work, I guess. But
What if you went to a swimming pool the day before?
you know,
And then it's like, oh no.
And swimming pools are probably a great place to grope people. So the odds are high.
So you have 2 UV marks, one for like your entrance to the swimming pool and one for the grope.
Well, when you go to, it's probably not like that anymore, but I remember when I was a kid, I went to Disney World. That's how they marked you.
Yeah, they did the
Oh, yeah.
UV. Yeah. They still do that in a lot of places.
Well, if you think that's terrifying and you're thinking to yourself, wow, as a young lady, I'm not ever going to go to Japan. Of course, if you're a young lady, you're not watching this. But,
We have a very small percentage of female viewers.
like zero.
I don't want to brag. I occasionally watch
More
this.
than most tech channels, as it turns out.
But that is not the only way that the gropers can get you.
Mobile penis flashers on the rise in Japan. So we did a similar story to this a while back, and I think it was in the U.S., where people will airdrop a picture of their penis to your phone if you have it set to receive random airdrops. So the person might be like, what was the 30 meters away from you?
Yeah,
It was a small like vicinity that you could receive an airdrop from.
But they talk about how, you know, it's almost always line of sight because they want to see the reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when you go.
But they actually arrested somebody, which is good. Maybe that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I've always been told not to react. Like,
Yeah.
having been flashed before, you just don't react. You don't look, you don't react.
I guess you could just laugh, but then it might get violent.
Yeah, laughing or, again, the... I don't know. If
Sad.
you're a mobile penis flasher, tell us your thoughts. Also, please unsubscribe and don't
We're gonna get like a 5-paragraph treatise on why I mobile flash
Yeah.
Oh.
and how you shouldn't judge me for it.
And they're going to have a Pepe icon for their username.
Oh, no,
Yeah, but-
Pepe's been redeemed.
Yeah, Pepe's back, and I
helped
saw a
do the
bunch
titles
of
for that episode.
photos, not in the article related to that, where it was the free Hong Kong stuff, and they all had a Pepe. They really are using it.
Nice. All right. Well, that's it for the news this week. We'll see you next week.
Man, this took a long time today.
Bye.
My cats are gonna be starving.